Chapter 1582. Where did you meet her? Chu Li asked. Dong Jianxin replied, within the Qiu dynasty. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. Ah, forget it, what happened in the end? The bishop and the saint of the Holy Church of Light couldn't defeat the two of them and were running away. However, Miss Li slowed them down, so I helped to bring her away. No matter how powerful Chen Zhenji and Luan Ming are, they wouldn't dare to kill me. Dong Jianxin smiled. Chu Li asked, then why did Luan Ming slap you? He warned me not to be a busybody. Dong Jianxin scoffed. But I still managed to escape. Chu Li frowned. Where's the white crane? Dong Jianxin replied, it found a place to look for food. It'll naturally come over if I go out. Chu Li was not in a hurry to help. He could sense that Sun Mingyue was not in danger and was not even injured. He looked at Li Meng from head to toe, making her nervous. She took a step back and hid behind Shaoqi. Shaoqi said, don't look at her like that. Chu Li shook his head. Looks like she's from the Qiu dynasty. Li Meng said, I'm not from the Qiu dynasty. The saint and the bishop are really bold. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. It's not wise to find a Qiu dynasty person to be the saint. I wonder how many people will oppose it. The Li dynasty and the Qiu dynasty were enemies. Years of war had strained the relationship between the two countries, and they were regarded as mortal enemies. As the bishop of the Holy Church of Light and a Qiu dynasty person, all the disciples of the Holy Church of Light would not agree. I was originally from the Li dynasty. Li Meng quickly said, Mother was kidnapped to the Qiu dynasty. Now that Master has saved me, of course I'm from the Li dynasty. It's useless. Chu Li shook his head. Once you're a Qiu dynasty person, you'll never be a purely dynasty person. You'll be in a difficult situation in the future. I hope you can hold on. Of course I can. Li Meng clenched her fist and scoffed. I still have Master. You don't have that much freedom after becoming an enlightened master, Chu Li said. Chu Li said, I'm not that good at teaching matters anymore. The key is still you. Forget it, we'll talk about it another time. He turned to look at Dong Jianxin. Senior brother, we must take revenge. Forget it. Dong Jianxin shook his head and said, he only injured me, he didn't kill me. Otherwise I would already be dead. Chu Li furrowed his brows and remained silent. Master wants me back to be punished, right? Exactly. Dong Jianxin let out a sigh and said, Chen Zhenji went to the mountain to complain. Master could no longer protect you and could only punish you. Who asked you to fight with Zhong Wanqing? You should be punished for your evil intentions. Chu Li sneered. He instantly understood Chen Zhenji's plan. At first glance, Chen Zhenji seemed to be afraid that the Goddess Attraction Mountain would not dare to kill him, so he went to the Goddess Attraction Mountain to complain. It looked somewhat childish and ridiculous, like a child complaining to his parent. This move had forced his master, Zhou Dunli, to the point where he could no longer protect him and had to punish him for going into seclusion. If he went into isolated cultivation, Chen Zhenji would be able to deal with Sun Mingyue and Song Wanqing. Without him, Sun Mingyue would not be a threat to him. In addition to monk Luan Ming, they were trying to destroy the foundation of the Holy Church of Light and weaken the Li dynasty. If they crippled Sun Mingyue or even killed her, the next heavenly god would be replaced by the other three sections. Sun Mingyue's methods were far more powerful than the disciples of the other three sections. If Sun Mingyue was eliminated, the Qiu dynasty would be able to breathe a sigh of relief. Dong Jianxin did not understand the crux of the matter. He only felt that Chen Zhenji was ridiculous, but he did not know that Chen Zhenji was also an emperor. How could an ordinary person compare to his scheming? Chu Li instantly understood the whole story and secretly hated Chen Zhenji. He was forced into a corner. Dong Jianxin smiled. Chu Li shook his head and did not intend to explain the crux of the matter. He smiled. How will Master punish me? Face the wall for half a year. Dong Jianxin said. Chu Li frowned. Half a year? Dong Jianxin nodded. This is the lightest punishment. It can't be any shorter. Can I bring my wife along? Chu Li asked. Dong Jianxin looked at Shao Qi and said helplessly, I didn't say you can't. He shook his head helplessly and sighed. There was Lu Yurong on the mountain, and now there was another one. This junior brother Chu was really lucky with women. Both of them were rare beauties, and the saint of the Holy Church of Light was also a peerless beauty. Chu Li smiled at Shao Qi. Shao Qi smiled. Okay, I'll go with you. She glanced at the pool. Chu Li shook his head, indicating that he would think of a way. Then let's go back, Chu Li said. I want to see Master. Half a year should have starved the spirit-devouring turtle. If he used the soul-nourishing pill after he came out of isolation, it might not be able to endure it. It was just like a person who had gone crazy from hunger. Even if there was a poisonous cake in front of him, he might not be able to endure it. Send Miss Li back first, Dong Jianxin said. Chu Li nodded. Shao Qi said, Send me back to the public house first. I need to deal with some matters in the public house before going to Goddess Attraction Mountain with you. Okay. Chu Li held Shao Qi and disappeared. Li Meng looked at the direction where he disappeared and was stunned. She turned her head and said, Big brother Dong, is he really Chu Li? Of course. Dong Jianxin smiled. Li Meng said, I never heard that he only has one arm. Maybe he's injured, Dong Jianxin said indifferently. Chu Li walked on the edge of a knife, and had always been fighting against enlightened masters. It was not a big deal if he did not have one arm. Li Meng shook her head and said, Is his martial arts really that powerful? You'll know in the future. Dong Jianxin smiled. He was usually serious and kept a straight face, especially in front of Chu Li. He always maintained the dignity of a senior brother, but in front of Li Meng, he was kind as if he was a different person, but he pitied her life. Li Meng said, If he's really that powerful, how can his arm be cut off? She shook her head disapprovingly. Dong Jianxin laughed and did not explain further. Chu Li appeared again and said, Senior brother, let's go. I'll go back on a crane. I don't need you to send me back. Dong Jianxin shook his head and said, I see that you're worried about the Holy Church of Light. Go quickly. Okay. Chu Li did not hesitate. He grabbed Li Meng's sleeve and disappeared. Li Meng felt the light and shadow in front of her distort and flicker. She suddenly felt like vomiting. Even if she closed her eyes, she still felt like vomiting. After a while, her eyes suddenly lit up. She opened her eyes and saw her master and grandmaster fighting. They were in the depths of a forest, surrounded by ancient trees that reached the sky. Chu Li swung his left sleeve and she floated to a tree. She quickly hugged the branch and did not dare to move. In the next moment, Chu Li appeared beside Sun Mingyue and held her hand with his right hand. Sun Mingyue's eyes were bright. She felt Chu Li's force and naturally reached out her hand. The two of them shook hands. Suddenly, the Supreme Diamond Scripture was activated. Their forces connected and suddenly multiplied. In an instant, it flowed through her internal organs, mending her body and healing her injuries. Chu Li, Chen Jinji, Monk Luanming, and Song Wanqing who were fighting cried out. Chu Li smiled faintly. His right hand suddenly let go of Sun Mingyue's hand and unsheathed his sword. Clang! A dragon's roar was heard. The Sky Killer sword was slowly and painfully unsheathed. A vast force surged from his body. It was earth-shattering and directly pressed down on the two. Go! Chen Jinji and Monk Luanming shouted and suddenly disappeared. Li Meng hugged the branch and widened her eyes in disbelief. Chapter 1583. Chu Li returned his sword to its sheath and looked at Chu Li and Song Wanqing. He said with dissatisfaction, Senior Song, what's going on? Aren't you in closed-door training? Song Wanqing said, This is exactly what we need to prepare before going into seclusion. Only by finding a successor can we peacefully go into seclusion. Chu Li took a deep breath and looked at Sun Mingyue. Sun Mingyue said, "Before Master ascends to heaven, you must help me choose my successor. The Holy Church of Light has really extended their reach. They've found a successor in the Qiu dynasty," Chu Li said impatiently. He was angry that the two of them were in danger. How could the two of them fight against two grandmasters? Moreover, Sun Mingyue's injury did not alert him and blocked his senses. Clearly, he felt that he had lost an arm and didn't want him to get involved in this matter. Sun Mingyue said, "Finding a successor is very exhausting. I had to join hands with my master and finally found her. I didn't expect Monk Luan Ming and Chen Jinji to be aware of it, so we could only force our way in." Chu Li said, "Forget it, this is a secret of the Holy Church of Light, you don't have to tell me. Is Miss Li your disciple?" "Yes." Sun Mingyue smiled. "Although the little girl is a little old, she is very pure. It'll be very difficult for her to reach your level." Chu Li shook his head. "That's not necessarily true." Sun Mingyue smiled. "As long as you train him well, he'll definitely surpass me." In a flash, she appeared on top of the tall tree and pulled Li Meng back to Chu Li. "This little girl has great potential." Chu Li smiled and did not comment on it. In his opinion, Li Meng was far inferior to Sun Mingyue. Sun Mingyue's strength was not only because of her talent in martial arts, but also her unique ability to read people's minds. Li Meng did not have this ability, and her mind was not deep enough. It was hard for her to reach Sun Mingyue's level. Sun Mingyue said, "You have to take care of him in the future." "All right." Chu Li nodded. His relationship with Sun Mingyue was complicated and intimate. Naturally, he would not allow Li Meng to be bullied. "Xiao Meng, let's go first." Song Wanqing waved her hand. "Let your master and Chu Li have a word alone for a while." Li Meng looked at Chu Li and Sun Mingyue curiously and answered absent-mindedly. Song Wanqing pulled her up and floated away, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Li Meng looked at the scenery in front of her and asked curiously, "Grandmaster, who is this Brother Chu? You can't call him Big Brother Chu." Song Wanqing smiled and shook her head. "He's on the same level as your master. You should call him Martial Uncle." She was stern and strict in front of Sun Mingyue, but she was very gentle towards this grand disciple of hers. She felt that this grand disciple was cute and interesting. "Martial Uncle," Li Meng said in surprise. "Could he be Master's junior brother?" "Although it's not junior brother." Song Wanqing shook her head. "But it's about the same. I saw him holding my master's hand." Li Meng said in surprise, "Grandmaster, my master and him?" In her eyes, her master was a pure and clean fairy, and no stinky man could match up to her. However, this one-armed man held her hand, and she didn't even have the slightest intention of resisting, breaking the image in her heart. She was very indignant. She felt that Chu Li had tainted her master, and was not worthy of her master. Song Wanqing said snappily, "Don't ask around. It can't be?" Li Meng did not feel any fear towards Song Wanqing and cried out involuntarily, "Could it be that master actually likes him? So what if it is?" Song Wanqing said. Li Meng hurriedly shook her head and said, "Grandmaster, that won't do. He's not worthy of master." "Then who can match up to your master?" Song Wanqing asked. Li Meng said, "I feel that no man is worthy of master." Song Wanqing laughed involuntarily. "You little girl, forget it. If you say that in front of your master in the future, she will definitely reprimand you. Don't blame me for not reminding you." "Yes," Li Meng said helplessly, "Master actually likes such a person." "You." Song Wanqing revealed a doting smile. "You don't even know how powerful Chu Li is. Seeing is believing, and you will understand in the future. Only Chu Li could do something like pulling out his sword and frightening away two enlightened masters. No one else had the ability to do such a thing. Because Grand Disciple Li Meng didn't know any martial arts, she didn't know how powerful Qin Jinji and Monk Luan Ming were, so she wasn't shocked. In the future, when she cultivated martial arts and knew how powerful the two of them were, she would know how tyrannical Chu Li was. Grandmaster, how did Master fall in love with him? Li Meng asked curiously. This was what she was most curious about. This Chu Li's reputation was great, but she really couldn't see anything good about him. As for his appearance, he could be considered heroic, but he wasn't handsome enough. Moreover, he only had one arm. Even if he was a cripple, no matter how strong his martial arts was, it was still just an arm. Master was the saint of the Holy Church of Light. With a single call, hundreds would respond. With a stomp of her foot, the entire Li dynasty would tremble. She stood above all the men in the Li dynasty. How could she fall in love with such a person? Song Wanqing said. The two of them were originally enemies. They fought to a point where it was difficult to separate them. Later on, they fell in love with each other. Master must have beaten him until he pissed his pants, right? Li Meng smiled proudly and said, with just him, he still wants to fight with Master? Song Wanqing laughed. You little girl, you underestimate Chu Li too much. Your master can't beat him, that's why he fell in love with him. Right now you have high standards, but in front of Chu Li, he can kill you with a single breath. Is he that strong? Li Meng pouted her red lips. Song Wanqing smiled and shook her head. The ignorant girl could only become smart after suffering. Chu Li was not an outsider. It was better for Chu Li to teach her a lesson than an outsider. Therefore, she didn't say much and waited for her to suffer. Chu Li and Sun Mingyue looked at each other, speechless. Chu Li didn't know what to say. Sun Mingyue took off her veil, revealing Zhong Tianxia's delicate face. Her clear eyes fell on his shoulder. If it really can't be done, then cultivate the Azura power technique. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. If I can only grow an arm with the Azura power technique, then I'm too useless. Then will you always be missing an arm? Sun Mingyue asked. Chu Li said, it won't be long. Sun Mingyue nodded lightly and sighed. When I go back this time, I'll really have to go into isolated cultivation. I'll only come out after I become an enlightened master. Chu Li smiled and nodded. Go into isolated cultivation with peace of mind. Cultivate well. In the future, when you become an enlightened master, you'll be able to hold your head high. You'll get back at me for today and ruthlessly teach Chen Jinji and Lun Ming a lesson. Sun Mingyue chuckled and nodded. I have a favor to ask of you. Tell me, Chu Li said. I might have to go into isolated cultivation for a few months. Sun Mingyue frowned. Li Meng can't be delayed any longer. I want you to help her build her foundation. This girl looks down on me. Chu Li smiled and said, she thinks that I'm just SOSO. This girl is too naive. Sun Mingyue shook her head and said, this isn't a good thing for the future. I don't want her to wait until she becomes a saint and then grow up amidst setbacks. Chu Li nodded. That's true. No matter how smart she was, after becoming a saint, she would be looked down upon by the followers if she didn't have enough tricks up her sleeve. It would be difficult for her to build up her prestige. Moreover, with a master like Sun Mingyue, it was inevitable that she would be even more disdainful and unconvinced. Chapter 1584. Chu Li muttered, my senior brother has summoned me back for punishment. I'll have to face the wall for at least half a year. It's because of Zhong Wanqing's matter, isn't it? Sun Mingyue was exceptionally intelligent and instantly understood. She sighed, I've implicated you. What are you talking about? Chu Li could not help but laugh. It's only half a year. It'll pass in the blink of an eye. When I come out of isolated cultivation, you'll become an enlightened master too. Sun Mingyue shook her head. Both of them were going into closed-door training. One was going to be punished, while the other was going to become an enlightened deity. After both of them came out of closed-door training, one became an enlightened deity, while the other still had to struggle on the path of becoming an enlightened deity. Her emotions were indescribably complicated, and she did not know what to say. Chu Li smiled. Everyone has their own path. You've always been ahead of me. Sun Mingyue said softly, I don't know how to teach this little girl Li Meng. I'm not good at teaching others. Chu Li smiled and said, as a master, most of the time, I teach by example. How about this? I'll see if she can come out. If she can come out to take a breather while she's facing the wall, I'll help her build her foundation. I still have some understanding of the Great Light Scripture. Sun Mingyue smiled. Combining the strengths of both sides, she will definitely surpass me. Chu Li smiled and did not break her beautiful wish. Li Meng's temperament and aptitude were not as good as Sun Mingyue's, but there were no absolutes in the world. Just like his original aptitude, it was even worse than an ordinary person's. Later on, he obtained the life and death scripture and combined it with the supernatural powers of Buddhism, which allowed him to advance by leaps and bounds to where he was today. The two of them fell silent. Chu Li did not know what to say, and so did Sun Mingyue. She felt an inexplicable melancholy that she could not put into words, but she did not want to separate like this either. He didn't know what the situation would be like when they met again after separating. Chu Li broke the silence and smiled. All right then, I'll make a move first. Okay. Sun Mingyue nodded. Chu Li smiled at her and suddenly disappeared from the spot. Sun Mingyue stared at the spot where he had disappeared. After a while, she sighed and withdrew her gaze. Her figure flashed, and she quickly caught up to Li Meng and Song Wanqing. Song Wanqing said, this time, it's all thanks to his help. Sun Mingyue nodded silently. Song Wanqing didn't say anything else. She knew that her disciple didn't feel good. Li Meng asked curiously, Master, do you really like Brother Chu? Sun Mingyue frowned and glared at her. Li Meng shrunk her neck and stuck out her tongue. Feeling her master's ice-cold gaze, she was so scared that she didn't dare to speak. Song Wanqing said, Mingyue, don't scare Xiao Meng. Sun Mingyue shook her head and said nothing. She could not understand why such a strict master would be so lenient towards Li Meng. It was as if he had become a completely different person. Could it be that his temperament would change before he ascended to the heavens? Song Wanqing helplessly looked at Sun Mingyue, as if she could see herself back then. She was also this strict with Sun Mingyue, as if she had experienced a reincarnation, and was about to ascend to the heavens and leave this world. She would only see her again after 60 years. Sun Mingyue said, Master, I want to ask Chu Li to help me teach Xiaomeng. He agreed? Song Wanqing asked. She thought it was a good idea. When it came to intelligence and scheming, Chu Li was better than his disciple. His way of doing things was better than others. It was not by luck that he had grown from a mediocre scribe of the public house to a top-notch figure whose name was known throughout the world. It was best to let Xiaomeng receive his influence and broaden her horizons. Xiaomeng's previous life was too simple. Her heart was as pure as a piece of white paper, and her mind was simple as well. After being influenced by Chu Li, she would improve greatly, which would be beneficial to her future. Because of what happened to Zhong Wanqing, he will be punished by the mountain rules of Goddess Attraction Mountain. He will have to face the wall for at least half a year. I don't know if he will have the chance. Sun Mingyue said, if he has the chance, he will come out and teach Xiaomeng. Master, why do you want him to teach me? Li Meng hurriedly shouted. Sun Mingyue gave her a sidelong glance. Li Meng hurriedly closed her red lips again. Song Wanqing smiled and said, Xiaomeng, this is a rare opportunity. If it wasn't for your master, Chu Li would not care about this. You have to learn from Chu Li. You should know about his matters. Li Meng shook her head and said, What matters? His background is very poor, from the house of High Duke. Song Wanqing patiently told her everything. Li Meng was surprised and said, So he was a scribe of the public house. Isn't he the prince consort of the public house? That's a matter for the future. Song Wanqing said, In short, his experiences are legendary. Think about it, if you were in his shoes, would you be able to do this? No. Li Meng shook her head. Song Wanqing said, Extraordinary people have extraordinary things. There's no harm in learning from him, is there? Yes. Li Meng nodded obediently. When she heard about Chu Li's background and experiences, she felt that it was an eye-opener. She felt that she had underestimated him and judged him by his appearance. It was time for her to learn from Chu Li. Sun Mingyue could see through people's hearts. When she saw that Li Meng had quickly corrected her mentality, she was quite satisfied and said, "Let him teach you the great light scripture." Song Wanqing glanced at Sun Mingyue. Sun Mingyue said, "Master, Chu Li was born in Buddhism. His dharmic base cultivation level is profound, and his understanding of the great light scripture is better than mine. It'll be better for him to build a foundation for Xiaomeng than for me." Yes, that's true. Song Wanqing nodded lightly. Li Meng was also a little curious about how Chu Li would teach her. Chu Li brought Shao Qi to Goddess Attraction Mountain and met Zhou Dunli. Zhou Dunli was waiting for him. After Shao Qi greeted him, he stroked his beard and smiled. "Good, you came back just in time. I'll be going back soon. I won't be able to wait for you in 2 days." He looked at Shao Qi. She had fair skin and was delicate and elegant. She was a rare woman in the world. His disciple was indeed blessed. "Master, what do you want me to do?" Chu Li asked. Zhou Dunli said, "You didn't do a good job this time. You've been caught, so you can only be punished. Face the wall for half a year." "Yes." Chu Li nodded helplessly. "You'll begin isolated cultivation in 2 days. The Seeing Heart sect will supervise you. The mountain rules are the mountain rules. If you can avoid them, I have nothing to say. However, you can't, so you can only follow the rules. You can't be lazy." "Master, I'll leave halfway." "No." Zhou Dunli shook his head. Chu Li sighed. "Yes, my wife will be with me, that's fine." Zhou Dunli said, "You can't leave Goddess Attraction Mountain's heaven-reaching cliff for half a year." "Yes." Chu Li nodded. Zhou Dunli said, "If there's anything you haven't settled, quickly settle it. You'll begin isolated cultivation at heaven-reaching cliff in 2 days." "Yes." Chu Li gave a fist salute and bowed solemnly. He did not ask Zhou Dunli for help and helped to deal with the spirit-devouring turtle. If he could not handle such a small matter and asked his master for help, what kind of person would he be? Zhou Dunli smiled gently at Shao Qi. "This useless disciple is very tiring. It's rare that you can tolerate him." Shao Qi smiled and shook her head. Zhou Dunli glared at Chu Li and whistled. Soon, a dragon's roar was heard from outside. Zhou Dunli glided out of the basilica and went straight to the golden dragon. Then, the golden dragon disappeared among the clouds. Chu Li sighed helplessly. He should have known it would be so strict. The mountain rules were not child's play. Chapter 1585. Chu Li smiled. "She's in isolated cultivation." He secretly sighed in relief. The thought of the 2 women meeting gave him goosebumps. He really did not want to see that. Fortunately, Lu Yurong was smart enough to go into isolated cultivation and not see him. This saved everyone from embarrassment. Shao Qi said, "Isolated cultivation?" Chu Li smiled. "Ever since she came to Goddess Attraction Mountain, she's been in isolated cultivation. She must have been provoked by Tang Yi." Sigh. Shao Qi's heart softened when she thought about Tang Yi. She sighed. "It's really hard being a woman. The spiritual energy here is rich and it's a great place for cultivation." Chu Li said, "Madam, you should take the opportunity to consolidate your cultivation here so you don't have to leave the residence again." Shao Qi rolled her eyes. Chu Li smiled. "All right, I still have some things to deal with. I'll leave for 2 days and return after that." "Madam, do you want to come with me?" "Forget it, go ahead. I'll calm down here and consolidate my cultivation," Shao Qi said. Chu Li nodded and went forward to hold her waist. He kissed her red lips and disappeared after Shao Qi gave him 2 light punches. The next moment, He appeared in 10 Despair Valley and stood by the pool to look at the spirit-devouring turtle. He had thought about riding a white crane and throwing stones from the top of 10 Despair Valley. If the stones were high enough, they could generate enough power, but he gave up on the idea after trying it. The 10 Absolute Vitality ceiling formation was extremely strange. No matter how powerful the power was, it would be cut off once it entered the formation. The stones that were thrown down were only at the height of the 10 Absolute Vitality ceiling formation and could not generate enough power. In the end, there was no good way to deal with the old turtle. Perhaps when his dragon taming technique reached the 9th level, he would be able to deal with it. It seemed like he had to cultivate hard during this isolated cultivation. He suddenly disappeared and appeared at the ice pool in 100,000 Hills. The evil dark dragon was sleeping in the pool. It seemed to be enjoying itself and obviously liked it here. Moreover, it had become much stronger as the ice pool increased its strength by leaps and bounds. Chuli smiled and tried to enter the pool. He used the dragon taming technique to feel it and nodded in satisfaction. The evil dark dragon sensed the art of dragon control and woke up to look at him. Chuli told it that he was going into isolated cultivation and warned it not to wander around lest it got into trouble. Then, he disappeared and appeared at the Great Light Peak the next moment. The Great Lane Temple towered majestically between the heavens and the earth. Golden light flickered, and the sound of Sanskrit lingered, solemn and holy. Chuli and Li Meng stood outside the Tempest Temple. Li Meng looked up and sized up the Tempest Temple. She asked curiously, "Uncle Chu, call me Chuli." Chuli interrupted her. As soon as he heard her call him uncle, he felt his whole body itch and it was extremely uncomfortable. Li Meng secretly rolled her eyes at him and said helplessly, "But Master told me to call you that, I don't dare to disobey." All right, don't call me that then. Just speak," Chuli said. Li Meng said, "Why did you come to this temple? Are you here to pray to Buddha?" "You'll find out later," Chuli said. As soon as he finished speaking, Fa Yuan, who was dressed in a gray frock, slowly walked out of the temple. He approached Chuli and bowed with pressed palms. "Amit Ba, Brother Chu." His gaze fell on Chuli's left shoulder. Chuli smiled. "I cut it off myself. I cut off my arm to survive." "Looks like Brother Chu has met a tough opponent." Fa Yuan smiled. "It's not an enlightened master, is it?" Chuli shook his head. "Fa Yuan, I'm here to ask for your help again." "Brother Chu, just say it." Fa Yuan smiled. "There's no need to ask for words." Chuli turned around and pointed at Li Meng. "Send this girl into the temple, and let her learn Buddhist scriptures from the beginning. Understand the Dharma." Amit Ba. Fa Yuan looked at Li Meng in surprise. Li Meng also looked at Fa Yuan curiously. Fa Yuan was extraordinarily handsome. His bald head shone under the sun. The ring scar did not affect his handsomeness at all. Instead, it increased his manly charm and made him more attractive. She could not help but admire him. Chuli said, "I won't hide it from you. This is the next saint of the Holy Church of Light." Fa Yuan's eyes flashed and he raised his eyebrows. Chuli smiled. "She needs to understand the essence of the Dharma before she can cultivate the scripture of great light." Good. Fa Yuan nodded slowly. "All right, since Brother Chu asked for it, it's not a problem. However, I'm afraid that the Lady Almsgiver will not be able to endure the hardships in the temple." Chuli smiled. "Just treat her as an ordinary disciple. The Tempest Temple will always have a way. However, only you can know of her identity. You can't tell anyone else." "Of course." Fa Yuan's expression was solemn as he pressed his palms together. This was a rare opportunity. As long as the next saint stayed in the Tempest Temple for a while, the Tempest Temple and the Holy Church of Light would have a relationship. There would be a chance to resolve the old grudge. Her identity must be kept a secret. Otherwise, someone would definitely harm her. The Tempest Temple and the Holy Church of Light had a deep grudge. Even a Buddhist disciple could not forget this blood feud. If Li Meng's identity was leaked, the consequences would be unimaginable. If Li Meng died in the Tempest Temple, not only would the Holy Church of Light be enraged, but they would also offend Chu Li. Li Meng did not understand why the two were being so serious. She did not know how far-reaching the impact would be. Chu Li smiled. "I'll take her away after half a year." Fa Yuan slowly said, "Brother Chu, don't worry. I'll do my best to protect her." Chu Li said, "Fa Yuan, I'm sure you'll do your best to take care of her." Amit Ba. Fa Yuan pressed his palms together. Chu Li suddenly disappeared. Li Meng hurriedly called out and sighed helplessly. "What's going on? Didn't she want Chu Li to teach her and teach her the scripture of great light?" Chu Li was too unreliable. He actually pushed her to the Tempest Temple. If Master knew about this, he would definitely scold him. "Almsgiver Li, come with me," Fa Yuan said gently. Li Meng hurriedly said, "Great Master Fa Yuan, I'm Li Meng. Am I going to enter the temple to cultivate?" "Yes." Fa Yuan nodded. "Do I have to shave my hair and become a nun?" Li Meng covered her shiny black hair. Fa Yuan smiled. "Hair is a strand of worry. If you don't get rid of your worries, how can you be free and enter the world of Buddhism?" "I don't want to shave my hair." Li Meng shook her head vigorously. Fa Yuan gently pointed his finger, and Li Meng immediately stopped moving. Fa Yuan came in front of her and gently waved his hand in the air. Li Meng's hair rustled and fell, revealing a beautiful bald head. Her facial features looked even more lovely and elegant. Li Meng suddenly became anxious and glared at him angrily. Fa Yuan smiled. "Since Brother Chu asked me to do this, you can treat me as Brother Chu. Do what you have to do and don't disobey. I believe that Brother Chu would do the same if he was here. From today onwards, your Dharma name is Miao Jing." Li Meng tightly pursed her red lips and did not say a word. She only glared at him. Fa Yuan said, "This is the Tempest Temple. They have a deadly feud with the Holy Church of Light. If your identity is exposed, you will die." "Humph." Li Meng gritted her teeth. Fa Yuan said, "Come with me." Chapter 1586. Ling Tian Cliff was located at the peak of Goddess Attraction Mountain. Ling Tian Cliff was a stone pillar with a height of 100 meters and a diameter of 10 meters. It stood abruptly. When he looked down with the omniscient mirror, Ling Tian Cliff looked like a flagpole on Goddess Attraction Mountain that was used to plant flags. Goddess Attraction Mountain was originally unreachable as it was hidden in the clouds, and it was even more so for Ling Tian Cliff. Staying at Ling Tian Cliff was not a comfortable thing to do. Astral winds constantly blew against them. This place was not protected by Goddess Attraction Mountain's formation, so the wind was no different from knives. Without inner energy to protect one's body, one would be frozen into a popsicle in a second. Chu Li and Shao Qi each sat on a cattail hassock and closed their eyes to meditate. Time seemed to have frozen. 1 day passed, 2 days passed. Chu Li had been comprehending the life and death scripture. He felt that as long as he could understand it, he could regrow his arm and even advance the dragon taming technique. The dragon taming technique had been stagnant at the 8th level and could not advance to the 9th level. According to his experience, he needed the evil nether dragon to advance and return the dragon energy so that he could advance to the 9th level. However, he refused to believe that he could not reach the 9th level by relying on the art of dragon control. As long as he could understand the scripture of life and death, the spiritual energy gathered from the heavens beyond heaven would be purer, and the art of dragon control would naturally advance to the next level. With this goal in mind, he continued to comprehend the life and death scripture. On the other hand, Shao Qi was consolidating the regal sword scripture. At Goddess Attraction Mountain, it was easier for the regal sword to absorb the spiritual energy from the outland. The subtle changes to her body continued. Step by step, she felt stronger and new day by day. Every day seemed to be a new version of herself, different from the day before. She was exuding a stunning radiance and beauty like a blooming flower, becoming more and more beautiful. Chu could feel her extraordinary beauty, and had an impulse from time to time. Unfortunately, this was Ling Tian Cliff, which was not suitable for couples. He could only suppress his impulse, and work hard to understand the life and death scripture. Ever since he obtained the life and death scripture, he had always been passively trying to understand it. After dying once, he had a deeper understanding of the scripture and rarely had the time to calm down to understand it because he thought it was too profound. In the face of the life and death scripture, wanting to comprehend it was like opening one's mouth to swallow the heavens. There was no place for him to start, and he inexplicably felt that he was insignificant and insignificant. He revered the life and death scripture and did not dare to be greedy and think that he could comprehend it. Now that he had been forced to this step, there was no way forward. His intuition told him that the tree of life and death was his life-saving straw. Therefore, he held on to it tightly and was determined to comprehend it. No matter how difficult it was, he would face it head-on. After such a long time, he had already accumulated enough knowledge. In the past, he felt that the life and death scripture was too abstruse and unpredictable. Now that he was comprehending it again, he realized that it was not that difficult anymore. At least he found a small path. As long as he climbed up this rugged path, he would definitely gain something. 3 days later, Shao Qi came out of her meditation and saw Dong Jianxin fluttering over with a wooden box filled with food. Shao Qi stood up and curtsied. Dong Jianxin said softly, "Sister-in-law, you haven't eaten for 3 days." Shao Qi replied softly, "It's all right. Thank you, senior brother. We're family, no need to be polite." Dong Jianxin shook his head and said, "Then you eat some first, don't worry about him." Shao Qi nodded. She was not worried that Chu would not eat, so she did not think too much about it. Dong Jianxin put down the wooden box and left. After Shao Qi ate some food, she put it down and closed the box. This wooden box looked ordinary, but it was amazing. The inside could be kept warm, and it was not affected by the piercing cold of the vital energy outside. It was still boiling hot. 6 days later, there was still no sign of Chu waking up. Shao Qi was still not worried. Dong Jianxin came to deliver food every day, and it was Shao Qi who took it. Chu did not wake up even once. Dong Jianxin was a little worried. 6 days must be too long. 10 days later, Chu still did not wake up. After Dong Jianxin brought over the wooden box, he was a little worried and said, "Sister-in-law, why don't you wake him up?" Shao Qi shook her head and said, "Senior brother, he's fine." "Really?" Dong Jianxin looked at Chu. In just 10 days, Chu seemed to have changed into a different person, as if he had suddenly aged 10 years. He turned to look at Shao Qi and hinted to her that this was a little inappropriate. Was he possessed? Shao Qi shook her head and smiled, indicating that there was no need to worry. Dong Jianxin carefully looked at Chu. He was worried, but when he saw Shao Qi's natural expression, he could only swallow his words and leave without saying anything else. Chu must have had a fortuitous encounter to be able to reach this stage. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to do so with his qualifications. This was already beyond the scope of ordinary people, so seeing Chu like this, he could not conclude that he was possessed. 20 days later, Chu still did not wake up. After Dong Jianxin put down the wooden box, he looked at him worriedly. At this time, Chu had become an old man, as if he had aged 50 years. His eyebrows and hair had become white. Although he did not look lethargic, it was not the appearance he should have at his age. If it was not for the fact that his face did not change, Dong Jianxin would have suspected that he was a different person. Shao Qi was actually a little worried, but her intuition told her that Chu was not in danger and was only comprehending the mystic technique. Dong Jianxin looked at her and sighed. Shao Qi whispered, Senior brother, Chu Li cultivated the earth matrix and reincarnation scripture of the reincarnation temple. He might be comprehending this scripture. The earth matrix and reincarnation scripture. Dong Jianxin nodded in realization. No wonder, then his level is already extremely high. Shao Qi smiled and said proudly, "His comprehension is amazing, especially his understanding of Buddhism. The earth matrix and reincarnation scripture is also a branch of Buddhism, so his cultivation is very fast. The earth matrix and reincarnation scripture is very difficult to cultivate. It's a mystic technique that can only be cultivated with a high root tool." Dong Jianxin nodded. The monks from the reincarnation temple have embarrassed their ancestors. None of them can cultivate it to perfection. Shao Qi nodded. Dong Jianxin said, "Although the earth matrix and reincarnation scripture is mysterious, can he withstand not eating for so many days?" Shao Qi could not be sure. She looked at Chu Li worriedly and finally sighed. "He's not in danger. Let's wait a little longer." "All right." Dong Jianxin sighed. They waited for another month, but Chu Li still did not wake up. He seemed to have become an old man who was more than 200 years old, or even 300 years old. His face was full of wrinkles, and his luster was gone. His eyebrows and hair had become snow white, like a withered tree. His body was surrounded by a heavy aura of lethargy, like a candle in the wind that could be extinguished at any time. "Sister-in-law, is this okay?" Dong Jianxin lowered his voice, unable to keep his composure. Shao Qi pursed her red lips and shook her head gently. She had not been able to close her eyes for the past few days. She had been staring at Chu Li and carefully sensing him. She felt that his breath was weak, as if it would disappear at any time. She could no longer suppress her worry. She reached out and grabbed his right wrist. A strand of inner energy drilled into him, but she found that Chu Li's body was empty. It was as if there was only a shell left, empty and powerless. She could not feel Chu Li's existence. It was as if his soul had left his body, and only a shell was in front of her. She was shocked and quickly increased her inner energy. She even reached out and pressed between his eyebrows. She still could not sense Chu Li's existence. It seemed that Chu Li had really passed away. She was shocked and worried. When Dong Jianxin came over, she thought about it but still did not ask for help. Chapter 1587. Sigh. Dong Jianxin shook his head and sighed. "This is not good." Shao Qi said, "It's okay, let's wait and see." "Sister-in-law, you can really keep your composure. I admire you," Dong Jianxin said helplessly. Shao Qi forced a smile. Her confidence in Chu Li allowed her to hold on. She did not disturb him and continued to wait. However, this kind of waiting was like a torture. Chu Li continued to age, like a leaf turning yellow little by little. Finally, he left the branch and fell to the ground, returning to the soil. In the end, he did not make a sound, as if he was completely dead. His body had no temperature, his heart stopped beating, and his breath disappeared. Dong Jianxin saw this and could not help it any more. "Sister-in-law, junior brother, he?" "Wait a little longer," Shao Qi said. "Junior brother is already dead, and we still have to wait," Dong Jianxin shouted. Shao Qi slowly said, "Senior brother, don't worry. I believe that Chu Li will not have an accident. He must be comprehending martial arts, and he can still wake up." "He is already dead, can he return to life?" Dong Jianxin's face was red as he shouted angrily. Shao Qi slowly nodded. "Even if he is dead, he can return to life." "Sister-in-law, I know you have absolute confidence in junior brother, but at this time, if we don't save him, we really can't save him," Dong Jianxin hurriedly said. Shao Qi shook her head. "We can't disturb him now, let him do it himself." "You!" Dong Jianxin's eyes burst, and suddenly leaned towards Chu Li. Bang! An invisible force hit his back, and he could only retreat to avoid it. "Sister-in-law!" Dong Jianxin shouted, "Nonsense!" Shao Qi said, "Senior brother, wait a little longer." Dong Jianxin gritted his teeth. "I can't wait any longer, I can't watch you mess around. Then I can only offend you." Shao Qi sighed. Dong Jianxin stared at her and scoffed, "Unreasonable, let's see how capable you are." He reached forward and pushed his palm out. Shao Qi did not move. Bang! Dong Jianxin flew out and almost fell out of heaven-reaching cliff. Dong Jianxin's eyes widened in shock. Shao Qi still did not move. Bang! Dong Jianxin was once again sent flying backwards. A tyrannical force struck his palm, and his body involuntarily flew out of Ling Tian Cliff, only able to float down. He landed in front of the main hall of Immortal Attraction Mountain and stomped his feet angrily. While he was angry, he was also shocked. He didn't expect that his sister-in-law, who looked so weak, would be so powerful. He didn't even see her make a move, and she was able to force him out. She was really amazing. Since she had such martial arts skills, her foresight was not bad. Moreover, she would not harm her junior martial brother, so she must have her reasons. Thinking of this, he gave up on the idea of attacking again. He suppressed his anxiety and could only wait. For the next month, Chu Li remained motionless as if he was dead. Every time Dong Jianxin went up to deliver food, he would look at Chu Li worriedly for a while, but Chu Li's body was not stiff, as if he had fallen asleep, which made him suppress the urge to rescue him. Now that things had come to this, it was probably too late to make a move now. It was better to wait and see. A month later, Chu Li still had not woken up. His appearance began to change. His originally withered hair began to glow, and as time passed, his white hair began to turn gray, then black, so black that it shone. The wrinkles on his face began to fade, becoming fewer and fewer. Finally, his face became smooth and clean. He turned from an old man to a middle-aged man, then to a young man. In the end, his body even began to shrink, becoming smaller and smaller. Shao Qi looked at his changes and did not know whether to laugh or cry. In the end, he turned into a baby. The white robe on his body had fallen off, revealing his smooth and tender skin. It was bright red and his hair was sparse. She could not help but want to reach out and hug him, but she forced herself to hold back. Although he had become a baby, he still sat upright with his palms and legs facing the sky. His expression was solemn and dignified. She was a little worried. Would he continue to change and become younger than a baby? Would he eventually become an innate aura? Fortunately, her worries did not come true. After turning into a baby, Chu Li began to grow. Another month later, Chu Li returned to his original age. His appearance changed slightly from before, as if he had become more pleasing to the eye. He was still not handsome, but he was valiant and had a bit more dignified. He continued to grow until he was middle-aged, then into his old age, and then into nirvana. This repeated 4 times, and the change became faster and faster. In the beginning, it was 3 months, and the last time, it was only 10 days. When he turned back into a baby for the last time, his left arm unknowingly grew back and returned to its original state. Chu Li slowly woke up. When he opened his eyes, a gentle luster flashed. It was as if his entire body was carved out of white jade. His whole body was glowing with a gentle luster, which firmly attracted Shao Qi's attention. "What's wrong?" Chu Li smiled. His voice was hoarse and magnetic. Shao Qi wiped her eyes and said, "You're finally awake." Chu Li noticed that she was haggard and weak. He felt pity for her and pulled her into his arms. He sighed. "How long have I been meditating?" "Half a year." Shao Qi leaned on his chest, exuding a fragrant smell. It was still the familiar scent from before. She scoffed in dissatisfaction. "You woke up just when the isolated cultivation ended. Did you do it on purpose?" Chu Li laughed. "Half a year? How long did you think?" Shao Qi scoffed. "It seems like only a blink of an eye." Chu Li sighed. I didn't expect it to be half a year. Shao Qi scoffed. Fortunately, your arm finally grew back. Chu Li stretched out his left hand and patted her flat back. He smiled. It has indeed recovered. Your life and death scripture is really powerful. Shao Qi said. It can actually regrow broken limbs. It's not inferior to the Azura power technique. Chu Li laughed. The Azura power technique is nothing. In his opinion, the Azura power technique was not even worthy of carrying the life and death scripture's shoes. Could not be compared at all. Shao Qi scoffed. How arrogant! She got up and looked at Chu Li. She exclaimed, Your appearance has changed. Chu Li said, Appearance is not important. Since the wall reflection is over, let's go back. You should have a good rest. Okay. Shao Qi nodded. Even if she had cultivated the regal sword scripture, she still felt tired at this time. The key was worry. She was always on edge. She did not know how he would be, whether he would be in danger, and whether he could survive without eating or drinking for half a year. Dong Jianxin fluttered over and saw Chu Li hugging Shao Qi. He cried out, Junior brother! Shao Qi quickly broke free from Chu Li's arms and left his embrace. Her cheeks were flushed and she was embarrassed. Chu Li smiled. Senior brother, is the wall reflection over? It's over today. Dong Jianxin's face turned serious. Junior brother, you're amazing. You woke up immediately after the wall reflection ended. You didn't wake up until it was over. Are you deliberately trying to scare us? Chu Li smiled. Senior brother, you're worried. Hurry up and bring something to eat. I'm starving. You still know that you're hungry. Do you think you've become a deity? Dong Jianxin said with a cold face. He opened the wooden box as he spoke. There were 2 bowls of porridge and 2 plates of side dishes inside. It was very clean. Shao Qi had no appetite and only ate a bowl of porridge. He was angry that Chu Li made Shao Qi so worried. It was a sin. Shao Qi handed him a bowl and Chu Li drank it in one go. Shao Qi passed the other bowl to him. That's yours, sister-in-law. Dong Jianxin said. Shao Qi shook her head and smiled. I'll go down and eat. Chu Li smiled. I don't need this bowl. I just woke up and it's not good to drink too much. It tastes good. Senior brother, you have such skills. Chapter 1588. It's Lu Yurong. Shao Qi smiled faintly. She tastes good, doesn't she? Chu Li was a little embarrassed but smiled as usual. It's all right, just a little worse than you. Shao Qi rolled her eyes at him and scoffed. You flatter me. Chu Li quickly changed the topic. Senior brother, is there anything big happening outside? Dong Jianxin said, There's something big. The Holy Church of Light's new bishop has ascended to the position of an enlightened master. You should know about it. Chu Li did not dare to look at Shao Qi. He nodded and sighed. I've finally become an enlightened master. You should also work hard to catch up to her, Shao Qi said. Chu Li felt that there was a hidden meaning in her words. He smiled. Why should I chase after her? I'll just walk my own path. Madam, you should continue to cultivate here and see if the regal sword scripture can help you become an enlightened master. Shao Qi nodded. Although I didn't cultivate much, I gained a lot. Goddess Attraction Mountain is indeed a holy place for cultivation. Of course. Dong Jianxin smiled. If not, we wouldn't have been able to dominate the first enlightened master title. Junior brother, have you improved? Chu Li smiled and activated the dragon taming technique. The inner energy of the dragon taming technique surged and was much purer and deeper than before. It surged in his meridians like a raging wave and broke through some acupoints like a hot knife through butter. He directly entered the 9th level of the dragon taming technique. As soon as the 9th level of the dragon taming technique was activated, he could not help but roar into the sky. A dragon's roar came from his throat and spread out. The clouds and mist seemed to surge along with it. When the dragon's roar was heard, The evil dark dragon that was far away in the 100,000 hills seemed to have sensed it. It suddenly stopped swimming in the ice pool and looked in the direction of Goddess Attraction Mountain thoughtfully. "Congratulations, junior brother!" Dong Jinshin was overjoyed. The dragon's roar was a sign that the dragon taming technique was perfected. He did not expect Chu Li to be able to do so. This was a realm that master only achieved after becoming an enlightened master. Chu Li achieved it before becoming an enlightened master. Once he became an enlightened master, he would be stronger than master, and his title as the first in Goddess Attraction Mountain would be secure. Chu Li was also overjoyed. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that he would actually take 2 steps forward and directly reach the full circle realm. Unfortunately, after the art of dragon control was perfected, he did not have the feeling of becoming one with the sky beyond heaven, and he still could not become an enlightened master. It seemed that he really had to cultivate the other 3 divine skills. However, with this experience, he did not think that he could not cultivate the other 3 skills. "Is this the complete mastery of the dragon taming technique?" Shao Qi asked. Chu Li smiled and nodded. Shao Qi smiled. "Then we really need to celebrate. Then let's make a few good dishes and get drunk together," Dong Jinshin said excitedly. He felt that Immortal Attraction Mountain had survived a great calamity this time. Previously, he had always been worried that if he became an enlightened master, he might not be able to keep his position as number 1. Tang Su was already stronger than him, but now that Chu Li had taken over, he had actually been relieved of a heavy burden. To him, it did not matter whether he became an Empyrean god or not. After all, he did not leave the mountain and just stayed on Goddess Attraction Mountain. Moreover, he could live longer without becoming an Empyrean god. In the future, when he grew older, he could directly go to the realm beyond heaven. It was no different from becoming an Empyrean god. This was also what made Immortal Attraction Mountain special. Chu Li did not decline. He and Shao Qi returned to their own courtyard. Soon, Dong Jinshin came over with Lu Yurong by his side. Lu Yurong's 9 maids helped to serve a large table of dishes, filling the stone table in the gazebo in the courtyard. The cold aura around Lu Yurong had already dissipated, and her temperament became more tranquil, as if she was not tainted by the mortal world. Chu Li smiled. "Miss Lu, it's not a good thing that your immortal energy is getting thicker." Lu Yurong gave him a sidelong glance and did not say anything. She greeted Shao Qi and smiled sweetly. "Third lady, congratulations on your great improvement in martial arts." "Likewise." Shao Qi smiled. Both of them realized that the other's strength had improved by leaps and bounds. Initially, Shao Qi thought that after she cultivated the regal sword scripture, she would definitely be able to suppress Lu Yurong. She never thought that Lu Yurong had also reached such a profound boundary and was on par with her. Lu Yurong had also cultivated the Empyrean fairy power and was only 1 step away from perfecting it. She was a gifted genius, but she had always been disturbed by worldly affairs. Now she was focused on cultivating in Goddess Attraction Mountain, a sacred cultivation ground. With her accumulation, she directly ascended to the last level of the Empyrean fairy power. Dong Jinshin pulled Chu Li to drink, venting his joy. He was also secretly helping Chu Li out. He felt that it was not easy for Chu Li to enjoy the blessings of having 2 wives. Looking at the 2 women chatting with smiles but fighting with swords, he felt a chill down his spine. No matter how beautiful or virtuous a woman was, at this moment, it was as if she had changed into a different person. She became full of fighting spirit and never got tired of it. They kept fighting, and every few words were mixed with a few spears. He secretly sympathized with Chu Li. This was the price he had to pay. Chu Li laughed to himself. Shao Qi had changed a little. She was no longer as cold as before. If it was in the past, she would not even be bothered to be jealous, or she would suppress it and resolve it herself. She would not quarrel with Lu Yurong. The jealous Shao-Chi was even cuter, and Chu Li laughed to himself. In the fairy nunnery next to the great Lane Temple, Li Meng was reciting scriptures in a room. The morning sun shone on her slender body through the open window. She knelt on the cattail hassock, knocking on the wooden fish as she chanted. Her elegant face was serene, as if she was a bhikshuni. The sound of footsteps came from outside, and a benevolent-looking old nun slowly walked in. Li Meng put down the wooden fish, stood up, and bowed with pressed palms. Amit Ba. Greetings, elder. Miao Jing, come with me, the old nun said gently. Yes, Li Meng replied respectfully. The old nun brought her to the outside of the nunnery, where Fa Yuan and Chu Li were standing. Li Meng suddenly felt a surge of anger from the bottom of her heart. She wanted nothing more than to rush forward and give Chu Li a tight slap. Fa Yuan pressed his palms together and bowed. Thank you, Masters Junior Liao Yin. Master Liao Yin smiled kindly. You don't have to do that. Miaojing's comprehension is excellent. She is a good tool for practicing Buddhism. Fa Yuan nodded. She will continue to practice Buddhism in the future. That's good, good, good. Master Liao Yin pressed her palms together and smiled. She turned to Li Meng and said, Miaojing, after leaving the nunnery, don't forget to continue your cultivation. Wipe away the dust in your heart and don't be lazy. Yes, elder, Li Meng answered obediently and bowed deeply. Thank you, elder. She did not suffer in the fairy nunnery. Instead, she was valued by Master Liao Yin. Master Liao Yin personally guided her in her cultivation and lectured her, which made her interested in Buddhism. Unfortunately, she was quick-witted and did not want to accompany the green lamp ancient scroll. Even so, Master Liao Yin was still grateful and admired her. Master Liao Yin smiled, pressed her palms together, and turned to return to the nunnery. The nunnery door quickly closed. Chu Li smiled. Let's go. Where to? Li Meng gritted her teeth and scoffed. Chu Li turned and smiled. Fa Yuan, I owe you another favor. Then you owe me, Brother Chu. You'll have to return it one day, Fa Yuan smiled. Chu Li nodded. Of course, I won't go back on my word. Li Meng took a deep breath and held back her anger. She glared at Chu Li with her bright eyes. Chu Li said, We'll take our leave then. Fa Yuan pressed his palms together, turned around and left. Li Meng was still glaring at Chu Li. Her eyes were filled with hatred as if she wanted to eat him alive. Master asked him to teach her, but he pushed her to the monk, Fa Yuan. Then, Fa Yuan pushed her to the fairy nunnery. What had she become? Why was she being pushed here and there? Chapter 1589. Chu Li turned to look at Li Meng and scrutinized her. Li Meng's eyes widened. She pointed at Chu Li's left arm and stuttered, Didn't you lose your arm? Chu Li smiled. Won't it grow back? How is that possible? Li Meng shook her head. She had never heard of a broken arm growing back. Even her master could not do it. Chu Li said, Don't be surprised. All right, I'll take you there. He pulled Li Meng's sleeve and they disappeared. The next moment they appeared in a town. Li Meng resisted the urge to vomit. She looked around and realized that she was in a quaint alley. It was a quiet and elegant alley. She could vaguely hear noises coming from not far away. Chu Li led her forward. They left the alley and arrived at a wide street. The street was bustling with people. Both sides of the street were lined with shops with various items on display. Li Meng widened her eyes and turned to ask, Where are we? Chongming town of the Ji dynasty, Chu Li replied. The Ji dynasty. Li Meng nodded. The Tempest Temple originally belonged to the Ji dynasty, so it was not strange for them to be in the Ji dynasty. However, Chongming town sounded familiar. She suddenly remembered that it was Chongming town where the public house was located. Chu Li brought her to a restaurant. Chu Li's appearance had changed slightly. His temperament was different too. As such, no one dared to recognize him. They would not believe that Chu Li would be sitting in a restaurant in Chongming town. They sat at a table by the window and ordered a few dishes. Chu Li said, "Have a few bites. Your mouth must have suffered staying in the fairy nunnery for so long, right?" Li Meng did not hesitate to dig in. The fairy nunnery only allowed vegetarians and the taste was very bland. It was not to her taste. Every meal was a torture. Now that she could finally leave, how could she hold back when she saw the delicious food on the table? Chu Li poured himself a glass of wine and looked at her casually while looking at the street outside. Li Meng ate for a while. When she was half full, she lifted her head and elegantly took out a silk handkerchief from her sleeve to wipe her mouth. "Why are we here? I'll show you what it means to regrow a severed limb," Chu Li said. "I'll save you the trouble of making a fuss over nothing. Your knowledge is too shallow." "Humph, my knowledge is shallow, but who asked others to throw me into a nunnery? What knowledge can I have there?" Li Meng snorted. Chu Li smiled. "You want to complain to your master, don't you?" Li Meng pursed her red lips and did not deny it. Chu Li said, "All right then, I'll bring you out to broaden your horizons so that you won't tell on me. Do you want to meet them here?" Li Meng asked. Chu Li nodded. While the two of them were talking, another middle-aged man came up from the second floor. His face was like jade and he was extraordinarily handsome. When he reached the second floor, he scanned his surroundings. Since the second floor was empty and it was not time to eat yet, Chu Li's table was the only one on the second floor. His gaze fell upon Chu Li and suddenly froze. Chu Li smiled at him. Li Meng turned to look at Chu Li and whispered, "Do you know him?" Chu Li shook his head, then nodded. Li Meng was baffled. If he knew someone, he would nod. If he didn't, he would shake his head. Why was he shaking his head and nodding at the same time? She curiously looked at the handsome middle-aged man and had a good impression of him. It was rare to see such a handsome middle-aged man with such an elegant demeanor. The way he looked at him was filled with affection. He would definitely be able to charm many women. He was much better than Chu Li. She could not stop criticizing Chu Li. She became more and more curious about this handsome middle-aged man because she realized that his actions were a little strange. When he saw Chu Li, he actually turned around and left. Chu Li sat firmly in his seat and casually played with the pure silver wine glass. He smiled faintly as he watched the man leave. When he disappeared, Chu Li shook his head and drank his wine again. "Pour me some wine." Li Meng held the pot and filled his glass. She looked at Chu Li in surprise. "Why did he leave when he saw you? Could he be an enemy?" Chu Li said, "Have you ever heard of the Divine Church of Azura?" The Divine Church of Azura. Li Meng tilted her head and thought for a while. She finally shook her head and put down the wine pot. "I've never heard of it." Chu Li said, "It's no wonder you haven't heard of it. There aren't many people in this world who know about the Divine Church of Azura. Most of those who know have been killed by them." "So cruel." Li Meng was shocked. "Doesn't seem like it." It was hard for her to accept that the handsome middle-aged man was a devil who killed without batting an eye. He did not seem like a bad person at all. Chu Li said, "This is the first lesson I'm going to teach you today. Don't judge a book by its cover. You're too shallow and ignorant." Li Meng pursed her red lips and took a deep breath. She secretly told herself not to be angry, not to be angry. Chu Li smiled. "Do you know how many people have died in his hands?" "How many?" Li Meng quickly asked. She immediately pursed her red lips. She did not want to talk to him at first. Chu Li said, "At least 1,000. "Ah." Li Meng's eyes widened. Chu Li said calmly, "Now you know how shallow your knowledge is? Really?" Li Meng tilted her head and looked at him suspiciously. Chu Li said, "Next time you go back and tell Mingyu. Ask her if it's true. He's the bishop of the Divine Church of Azura, Hu Ruifeng." "I'll definitely ask Master," Li Meng said. Chu Li glanced at her. "Have you eaten?" "No." Li Meng shook her head. Chu Li said, "Then hurry up and eat. Once you're done eating, you can go and kill people." "Forget it then. I don't want to vomit when the time comes, Li Meng said. Chu Li grabbed her sleeve, and the two of them suddenly disappeared. The next moment, the two of them appeared in a pine forest. The pine needles rustled and fell. The setting sun shone on the pine forest, adding a touch of poignant beauty. Li Meng stood on a pine tree and could not help but sigh. She felt melancholy. Every time she saw this scenery, she could not help but feel melancholy. The world was unpredictable. In the end, it would still be like the setting sun. Chu Li, the handsome middle-aged man, was sitting cross-legged under a pine tree. His eyes were shining like electricity. Chu Li stood 10 meters away and fist saluted. Bishop Hu, we finally meet. What do you want? Hu Ruifeng said coldly. Chu Li sighed. A man has no intention to hurt a tiger, but a tiger will eat a man's heart. I originally didn't want to be enemies with Bishop Hu, but Bishop Hu, you just won't let it go. Hu Ruifeng's lips curled into a mocking smile. He sneered. You took away my foundation, but you make it sound like you did a good deed. Do you think I should thank you for sparing my life? Chu Li said, you should know how much evil you've done. Pretentious. I've been doing evil for a long time. Why didn't you do anything in the past? You're just interested in the divine church of Azura. Why do you have to say such empty words? Chu Li smiled. All right, even if Bishop Hu is right, you want to go against the High Duke's public house. You're forcing me to kill you. You think you can kill me? We'll have to see what you're capable of. Hu Ruifeng said in disdain. Sigh. Chu Li shook his head. He took a step forward and approached Hu Ruifeng. He unsheathed the regal sky sword and stabbed it slowly and painstakingly. TSS. Hu Ruifeng's left shoulder was instantly separated from his body. The regal sky sword's sharpness was beyond imagination. Hu Ruifeng really did not feel any pain. Li Meng stood on a tree and watched the two of them fight. She frowned and felt that it was strange. Was this Hu Ruifeng really a church leader? How could he be so weak? He did not even know how to dodge. He could only watch as his left arm was chopped off. Hu Ruifeng retreated 10 meters away. He stared at Chu Li with a shocked expression. He did not expect Chu Li's martial arts to reach such a level. Chapter 1590. Chu Li stood quietly under the tree and did not chase after him. He watched as his arm grew out and shook his head. Seems like Bishop Azura power technique has a high level of cultivation to be able to grow it out so quickly. What kind of sword technique is this? Hu Ruifeng asked. His heart sank. Such a strange sword technique was hard to defend against. The sword technique was slow, but he could not avoid it. A strange force bound him and he could not break free. Chu Li said, How's the power of murderous three forms? Great sword technique. Hu Ruifeng frowned and said, I've heard about you for a long time. You live up to your reputation. Let's stop here for today. We'll meet again in the future. He floated away like a wisp of smoke. TSS. A cold gleam shot at his back. Chu Li became one with his sword and arrived in an instant. His sword was too fast. It was beyond Hu Ruifeng's ability to dodge. The tip of the sword pierced Hu Ruifeng's heart. Chu Li pulled out his sword and retreated. Hu Ruifeng clutched his chest and staggered. He turned around and stared at Chu Li. Blood gushed out of his mouth. You, Chu Li shook his head. Bishop Hu, why are you playing tricks like this in front of me? As soon as he said that, his sword flashed again and pierced Hu Ruifeng's chest. Hu Ruifeng's right palm slammed down. The Azura palm hit the blade and made a clear, ding sound. The blade trembled and negated his palm energy. It did not change its direction and pierced his chest. Ugh! Hu Ruifeng's eyes widened again. Chu Li swung his sword and took 2 steps back to avoid the blood arrow. He nodded in satisfaction. This time, Bishop Hu did not cheat. Chu Li. Hu Ruifeng clenched his teeth and panted. The destruction of the heart of Azura would destroy his foundation and even his soul. It would mean the end of this life. All his memories would be washed away. When he woke up again, he would not be the real him. Chu Li shook his head. Bishop, you should know that I know Azura well. Why are you playing tricks in front of me? It's because you're a bishop that you've played too many tricks. Be a good person in your next life. Hu Ruifeng fell to the ground with a thud. He stared at Chu Li in disbelief as his body rapidly deteriorated. Li Meng was stunned. Hu Ruifeng turned from a person to a pile of powder. A gust of wind blew over, and the powder rustled and fluttered in the air. It had already vanished into thin air. She looked at Chu Li in disbelief. What kind of power was needed to achieve such a feat? Chu Li shook his head. That wasn't my doing. It's only natural that he would react the same way if I heavily injured the heart of Azura. If you ever meet an Azura in the future, just run away. Don't fight them until you're strong enough. What is the heart of Azura? Li Meng quickly asked. Is he an Azura? Chu Li nodded and explained in detail about the Azura and the heart of Azura. Then how can I see the heart of Azura? Li Meng asked. Chu Li shook his head. This requires a sufficient cultivation level. It's still too early for you to ask this. You'll be able to see it once your cultivation level is high enough. If you don't, you won't understand no matter what I say. How mysterious. Li Meng pouted. Chu Li smiled and suddenly slammed his palm into the void. A beam of light fell from the sky and formed a jade-colored palm print in front of his palm. A warm luster circulated and instantly hit a certain spot in the void. Bang! An even brighter light flashed. Li Meng saw a vague heart appear in front of his palm print. It was a heart that was flashing with golden light. It was the size of a palm and was surrounded by golden light. Bang! Chu Li followed up with another Heavenly King palm. The Heavenly King palm smashed the golden heart into pieces, turning it into blobs of golden light that floated in the air like white clouds, unwilling to float or fall. Li Meng looked at the golden lights in fascination. Chu Li, on the other hand, slammed his palm again. Wherever the palm wind passed, the golden lights were destroyed one by one. Finally, the sky darkened. Li Meng turned her head and stared at him. Chu Li frowned and stared into the void. The heart of Azura was indeed strange. It was hard yet soft, almost indestructible. It required pure Buddhist power to dissolve it. He did not believe it at first, but now that he had done it himself, he realized that he had underestimated the heart of Azura. Li Meng asked, "What's wrong?" Chu Li shook his head. Li Meng asked, "Was that the heart of Azura?" Chu Li nodded. "You've finally destroyed it?" Li Meng scoffed. She did not expect the heart of Azura to be so beautiful. It was truly breathtaking. Destroy it? Easier said than done. Chu Li frowned and shook his head. Didn't it vanish into thin air? Li Meng turned her head and looked around. Chu Li suddenly slammed his palm. Suddenly, a ray of light descended from the sky and formed a jade-colored palm shadow in front of his palm. Then, it rushed forward. Bang! Another golden heart appeared in the void. It was the size of a palm and was exquisite. It looked like a precious treasure made of gold. Li Meng's eyes widened. She did not expect it to still be here. Chu Li frowned and pondered. It seemed like it would be difficult to destroy it. He suddenly sat down and formed a seal with his hands. He muttered a Buddhist spell. It was the Great Light Scripture. The Great Light Scripture could restrain the Azura power technique. It should have a way to deal with the heart of Azura as well. Otherwise, Sun Mingyue would not have been able to subdue those Azuras, including the dead Hu Ruifeng. Li Meng could not see anything. She could not even hear the chanting. Chu Li, on the other hand, was chanting in a special way. His lips were moving, but he was chanting the Deva Sanskrit technique. Back then, when Gautama Buddha sat on the Wuliang mountain and preached the Great Light Scripture, he had used the Deva Sanskrit technique to preach the scripture, which could be heard in all directions. Thump, 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 thump. Li Meng felt her heart beating faster. She looked at the small golden heart floating in the void. It seemed like it was beating along with the heart. She could clearly hear its heartbeat, but she could not tell if it was her own or the heart of the heart. She felt an inexplicable fear. She quickly covered her chest to stop her heart from beating too fast. It felt like it was going to jump out of her body at any time. The golden heart beat faster and faster in the void. It emitted a bright golden light. As Chu-Li chanted, the golden light became brighter and brighter. It was like a rising sun. No one dared to look at it directly. Li Meng screamed. Chu-Li's chanting stopped abruptly. He turned to look at her. Li Meng's beautiful face was flushed as if she had been smeared with cinnabar. Her eyes were bloodshot. She would not have screamed for help in front of Chu-Li unless she could not take it anymore. Chu-Li waved his hand and Li Meng flew to his side. He stood up and placed his right palm on Li Meng's back. A warm inner energy flowed into her. Her entire body warmed up as if she was immersed in a hot spring. It was so comfortable that she wanted to sleep. Chu-Li shook his head. It was his fault. Li Meng did not know martial arts. She could not withstand the influence of the heart of Azura. Li Meng turned to look at the heart of Azura. The golden light slowly faded and merged into the void. She could not see it clearly. She could not help but ask, "Is it destroyed?" "No." Chu-Li shook his head. "Are you blaming me?" Li Meng asked. Chu-Li said, "Me." Li Meng's eyes widened. Chu-Li smiled. "I forgot that you don't know martial arts. You can't take it." Li Meng felt a warmth in her heart. She pursed her lips and smiled. "Can you continue to destroy it?" "It'll be difficult." Chu-Li pondered. "I'll bring you to the Great Light Peak and discuss it with your master." Li Meng was excited. Sure. She had been missing her master and honorable master. Chu-Li said, "Senior Song has probably ascended to heaven. You won't be able to see her." "That's impossible," Li Meng hurriedly said. "Honorable master is very healthy. How can she ascend to heaven?" Chu-Li smiled. "Ascending to heaven is different from dying. Senior Song is an enlightened master. Her time in this world is limited. She will ascend to the Outland when her time is up. You'll see her in the future." Chapter 1591. The next moment, the two of them appeared in the Divine Light Basilica on the Great Light Peak. Sun Mingyue was still sitting in her original seat, reading the files behind the desk. As soon as Chu-Li appeared, she raised her head and looked at him. She put down the dossier and stared at him. Chu-Li smiled as he looked at Sun Mingyue. Her clothes were as white as snow, and a white veil covered her face, revealing only a pair of pure and bright eyes. As she looked around, a clear radiance flickered, and it was captivating. She was even more beautiful than before, and her temperament was even more unattainable, as if she was looking down on all living things. Although her clothes did not change much, her temperament was different. Moreover, there was a tyrannical power around her that was suppressing him, as if it wanted to force him to leave her side and not get close. "Master!" Li Meng broke the gaze between the two of them and called out in a sweet voice, "Master, you've come out of your closed-door training?" Sun Mingyue looked at Li Meng and nodded lightly. "You didn't cause any trouble around Chu-Li, did you?" "Master, he didn't teach me at all. He threw me into the hands of a monk named Fa Yuan, who then pushed me to Abbess Liao Yin and stayed in the fairy nunnery for half a year." Li Meng complained without hesitation. Chu-Li looked at her with a faint smile. However, she smugly curled her lips and wrinkled her small nose. Sun Mingyue nodded. "Yes, he has his reasons for doing so. Just follow his orders." "Ma fu!" Li Meng said in a coquettish tone. She twisted her waist and said, "He doesn't want to teach me at all." "Shut up." Sun Mingyue frowned and said faintly, "Go to the backyard and have a good rest." "Yes." Li Meng immediately stuck out her tongue. She sighed to herself that her master was still biased towards her lover. Her disciple was not as important as Chu-Li, and her status was far lower than Chu-Li's. Sun Mingyue said, Doing. Doing entered gracefully. Sun Mingyue said, "Take her to the backyard. Keep her identity a secret." "Yes." Doing responded and glanced at Chuli. She then pretended not to see anything and left the Divine Light Basilica with Li Meng. As soon as Li Meng exited the Divine Light Basilica, she rushed forward and smiled. "Sister Doing, I'm Li Meng." Doing pursed her lips and nodded with a smile, but she did not reply. Li Meng asked, "Sister Doing, do you know that Chuli too?" Doing smiled and nodded without saying a word. "This guy really isn't anything good." Li Meng snorted. Doing looked at her deeply and shook her head without saying a word. She was well aware of the Tao of the whole body. Since she had to keep Li Meng's identity a secret, it was better for her not to say anything. Now that the saint had become the bishop, her actions had become stricter. She had already dealt with a group of elders. Now, the entire Holy Church of Light did not even dare to breathe too loudly. They did not dare to do anything rash, as they were very careful in fear of angering the bishop. However, Li Meng really didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth by speaking ill of Chuli. Sooner or later, she would suffer. Li Meng couldn't bear it, so she said in a low voice, "If the leader hears these words, he will definitely punish you." "All right, pretend I didn't say anything." Li Meng quickly nodded. She originally wanted to retort. She was her master's disciple, so what was wrong with saying a few bad things about Chuli? However, when she thought about her master's attitude, she immediately shut her mouth. Her position in the master's heart was indeed not as high as Chuli. Chuli and Sun Mingyue looked at each other for a long time. The incident that happened half a year ago felt like a lifetime ago. Seeing each other again felt like a stranger. Chuli broke the silence and smiled. "Congratulations, you've really become an enlightened master." Sun Mingyue sighed. Being an enlightened master may not be as wonderful as being an enlightened master. In fact, it's not as comfortable as being a grandmaster. Chuli said, "This is also why I don't want to be an enlightened master. Becoming an enlightened master will only make me feel more uncomfortable. Before my master ascended to heaven, he told me something about you. It's not good news." Sun Mingyue muttered. Chuli waved his hand. "Let's not talk about this first. Let's deal with this first." He took out the invisible heart of Azura from his sleeve. Sun Mingyue's gaze fell on the void and looked at the invisible heart of Azura. She frowned slightly. "The heart of Azura. And it belongs to the leader of the Divine Church of Azura." Chuli smiled. As expected of an enlightened master. "You have a good eye." Sun Mingyue rolled her eyes at him. She muttered, "Why did you kill him?" "He wanted to stir up trouble in Chongming Town. Naturally, I couldn't keep him alive. However, I'm not strong enough to destroy this heart of Azura. I can't use the Great Light Scripture." Chuli said, "It's best not to destroy it. We can't afford to offend the king of Azura." Sun Mingyue shook her head. Chuli smiled. "You can't destroy it either?" "If I go all out, I can destroy it," Sun Mingyue muttered. "But it'll take a lot of effort and the loss outweighs the gain. Once we reach the Outland, the king of Azura will definitely seek revenge. It seems like he has a lot of power in the Outland." Chuli nodded. Sun Mingyue said, "Azuras are born to be gods of war. The Azuras in our world aren't considered Azuras. They can only show their might in the Outland. They can't be destroyed. It's better to suppress this at the Great Light Peak." "All right," Chuli said. Since he was such a person, it was best not to offend him. Moreover, he had a group of Azuras under him. They would become a surprise force that could be shot out at any time to launch a sneak attack. Sun Mingyue sighed in relief. She formed a graceful hand seal in the air and wrapped it around the heart of Azura. There was a flash of golden light in the void. Then, it disappeared without a trace. Sun Mingyue had completely isolated its aura. It would not continue to strengthen and become an Azura again. Chuli said, Then tell me the bad news. According to Master, if you want to become an enlightened master, the conditions are extremely harsh. This is also intentional by the realm beyond heaven. They only left one path for you, but it's a path that is almost impossible to walk, Sun Minghui said. You have to perfect the 4 heart techniques. Chu Li nodded. I've perfected the dragon taming technique. All that's left is the spirit crane technique, white tiger power, and black tortoise power. Sun Minghui shook her head and sighed. Azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise, you have to cultivate all 4 of these divine techniques. You've perfected the dragon taming technique, which is the azure dragon power. As for the remaining 3 divine techniques, only the black tortoise power was passed down. Chu Li was stunned. Only the black tortoise power? What about the spirit crane technique and the white tiger power? Sun Minghui frowned. Master also thought that the spirit crane technique could replace the vermilion bird power. It wasn't until he ascended to heaven that he realized that the vermilion bird power and the spirit crane technique are not the same. The white tiger power is not the white tiger power either. Only the dragon taming technique and the black tortoise power have been passed down. Chu Li furrowed his brows. This was terrible news indeed. Sun Minghui said, in the past, the spirit crane technique could be cultivated to become an enlightened master. However, after the great change of more than 1,000 years, the spirit crane technique can no longer replace the vermilion bird power. Few people know about this. Chu Li laughed. Then where's the vermilion bird power now? It's lost. Sun Minghui shook her head. It's lost, just like the white tiger power. Chu Li frowned. Sun Minghui looked at him carefully. It's actually nothing. Even if you can't cultivate to become a god, you can still be apotheosized, just like me. Chu Li laughed. Sun Minghui became more worried. She quickly said, actually, it's not that bad to be an enlightened master. There's always a way out. It looks like the Outland is going to cut off the path to become an enlightened master? Chu Li chuckled. Sun Minghui pondered. Logically speaking, they won't be so desperate. There must be a way. Even if it's lost, there must be a way to obtain it. It's just that we don't know about it. Chu Li smiled. I think so too. There must be a way. Chapter 1592. Chu Li smiled. Do you think I'll cry for help? It won't be like this. Although there's always a way out, it's hard to say if it'll work. I think it'll be difficult. Sun Minghui frowned and shook her head. Think about it, there's a reason why no one has succeeded in the past 1,000 years. Chu Li nodded. I'm not arrogant. I think I'm a rare talent, but there's no other way. I can only try. If it doesn't work, then we'll talk about it. Sun Minghui smiled. He still had a way out, so it was not a big deal even if he did not succeed. She did not know that Chu Li was determined to cultivate to become a god. The easiest one to get now is the black tortoise power. Sun Minghui pondered. We can go and take a look. She was considered one of the top enlightened masters. With Chu Li, they could suppress the enlightened masters of Black Tortoise Mountain. However, it would be difficult to get the black tortoise power. Chu Li shook his head. Don't get involved. Let my master take a look, but it's unlikely. He had actually sent heavenly demonic sect disciples to Black Tortoise Mountain, but they did not succeed. The disciples of Black Tortoise Mountain were cautious, stable, and methodical. No one could take advantage of them. He dared not take the risk to prevent heavenly demonic sect from being implicated. After all, Black Tortoise Mountain had enlightened masters. As for getting Zhou Dunli's help, it was hopeless. Would he be willing to hand over his dragon-taming technique? Moreover, the Black Tortoise power was the foundation of Black Tortoise Mountain. How could it be passed on to outsiders? He did not want to use the old method, but it was the only way. His life and death scripture was becoming more and more profound. When combined with the heavenly demonic power, it was almost flawless. It would not be difficult to sneak into Black Tortoise Mountain. Sun Mingyue frowned at him. This was indeed difficult. Moreover, even if he got the black tortoise power, he had no clue about the other two divine techniques. How could he cultivate them? It was as if he was in a desperate situation and had no idea how to get out of it. Chu Li smiled. There's no rush. I have plenty of time. Then help me teach Li Meng, Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li said, an enlightened master like you isn't going to teach her, and you want me to? Sun Mingyue shook her head and said, it's not good for her to reveal her identity now. I don't want anyone to know of her existence. It won't be too late for her to reveal herself when she's strong enough to bear the burden of the saint. I see. Chu Li nodded slowly. This was the safest way. Exposing Li Meng in front of the great Light Peak disciples now was tantamount to exposing her shortcomings and damaging her reputation. Even if she could grow stronger in the future, it would be difficult to change this initial impression of her. Sun Mingyue understood that this was human nature, so she wanted to prevent her disciple from taking the wrong path. With you teaching her, I can rest assured, Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li smiled. You know that I've been very busy. Just teach her when you have time. Also, let her stay by your side. It's fine if you don't teach her, Sun Mingyue said. She wanted her apprentice to learn Chu Li's way of doing things the most, as it would bring endless benefits to her apprentice. Compared to Chu Li, she was still far from being able to teach her apprentice. All right. Chu Li nodded. Bring her along then. Don't blame me if she doesn't teach her well. Sun Mingyue smiled sweetly like a flower in the morning. Then, she stood up and walked out. Chu Li followed her out of the Divine Light Basilica and into the courtyard at the back. There, he saw Li Meng watching the ants fighting on the ground in boredom. When she heard the courtyard door being pushed open, she quickly raised her head and gave a fist salute. Master, Grandmaster, she? Yes, she's ascended to heaven. Sun Mingyue said calmly, she's not dead. She's going to the outland to continue her cultivation. If you work hard, you'll be able to see her in the future. Yes. Li Meng secretly felt sad. Although they had only known each other for a short period of time, she liked Grandmaster the most. It was a pity that they would never meet again. As for meeting her in the outland, she felt that it was impossible. You'll follow Chu Li from now on, Sun Mingyue said. Let him teach you martial arts. Li Meng's eyes widened. Sun Mingyue frowned. His martial arts is not inferior to mine. It's your good fortune to be able to teach you. If you slack off, don't blame me for being ruthless. Yes. Li Meng agreed obediently. She looked like a punching bag. Sun Mingyue shook her head. The current Li Meng was indeed not suitable to be a saint. When she was Li Meng's age, she had already been a saint for several years and completely controlled the Holy Church of Light. She was not as immature as Li Meng. Sun Mingyue wanted to teach her better and become stronger than herself, but there was still a long way to go. Only by getting Chu Li's help and combining the strengths of both sides would there be hope. Chu Li smiled. I felt that I was too busy, so I sent her back. You can teach her too. Yes. Sun Mingyue nodded. Chu Li said, if that's the case, we'll leave first. Since your dragon taming technique has been perfected, where's the evil nether dragon? Sun Mingyue asked. Chu Li smiled. I'll go and see it again this time. Your identity is different now, so it's not appropriate for you to wander around. Goodbye. As an enlightened master, she would definitely attract attention if she appeared in another country. Enlightened masters were like spirit beasts in the 100,000 hills. They could not simply leave their territory and go to someone else's. Moreover, enlightened masters could not act recklessly and disturb the heavenly oracle. Chu Li knew this, so he did not ask her for help to avoid putting her in a difficult position. He pulled Li Meng and suddenly appeared in Ten Despair Valley. The spirit-devouring turtle was lying motionlessly on the grass beside the pool, lazily basking in the sun. As soon as Chu Li appeared, it immediately retracted its head, limbs, and tail. Chu smiled and directly floated to its shell. The dragon taming technique entered its body through his legs. Instantly, it felt like a treasured sword piercing its body. After a few moments, the spirit-devouring turtle began to tremble. Compared to before, the perfected dragon taming technique was like an ordinary sword. Compared to a treasured sword that could cut through iron like mud, its power was incomparable. Chu wanted to let it feel the pain it had felt before. The dragon taming technique's inner energy was like a sword, continuously stabbing its body, causing unbearable pain. Suddenly, the spirit-devouring turtle stretched out its limbs and quickly leaped into the pool. Chu was pulling Li Meng to stand on the turtle's shell when they entered the water together. Li Meng was screaming when her mouth was suddenly sealed by an invisible force. She could only stare with her eyes wide open. When she felt like she was suffocating to death, she realized that she could not hold her breath at all. Chu placed his palm on her back. The gurgling air directly replaced her breathing. It was extremely strange. She looked around curiously. The spirit-devouring turtle was extremely fast. It dashed around in the lake, trying to throw the two of them off its shell. Chu was unmoved. His feet were like nails in the turtle's shell. He kept attacking with the dragon taming technique, trying to make it surrender. However, this spirit-devouring turtle was extremely stubborn and arrogant. It would rather die than surrender. It only swam around desperately, wanting to fight Chu with its endurance. Its ability to endure pain made Chu gasp in admiration. As expected of a turtle, it could endure. At first, Li Meng thought it was fun. The scene in front of her was very exciting. Everything in the water was very beautiful. However, after watching for 2 hours, she was a little tired. The pool was not very big. After swimming around and running around, 2 hours was enough to make her tired. She felt a little lazy and wanted to sleep. Chapter 1593. Chu shook his head and sighed. In the end, he decided to give up. The night was already hazy. The next moment, he appeared in his own courtyard in the public house. Master, Xueling greeted him. She was cultivating in the courtyard, and when she saw the two of them, she looked at Li Meng curiously. Go and prepare some food for her. Don't let anyone else see, Chu said. I'll pick her up tomorrow. Yes. Xueling nodded. May I know who this lady is? Let her speak for herself, Chu said. With that, he left abruptly. In the next moment, he appeared beside the ice pool in the 100,000 mountains. Under the cover of twilight, the entire 100,000 hills was bustling with activity. Standing beside the ice pool, Chu could hear the roars and cries of beasts coming from afar. Just listening to the sounds, Chu's heart trembled and he felt a faint sense of fear. The roars of these beasts seemed to have come from the edge of the sky, causing his hair to stand on end. It was clear how terrifying they were. Woo! The evil underworld dragon let out a light cry as it rushed out of the icy pond and leapt to his side. Its body became more and more slender, and its entire body seemed to be carved out of black jade. A gentle radiance flowed around it, making it look incredibly beautiful. It had already grown to a length of 15 meters, 2 or 3 meters longer than before. Clearly, it had grown a lot in the past 6 months. Chu flipped over and got on its back. The inner energy of the dragon taming technique was continuously channeled into it. The evil nether dragon let out a soft cry and its body trembled. Chu could feel the cold force surging within its body. It was a few times stronger than before. After it entered his body, the inner energy of the dragon taming technique was instantly purified. Although it was complete, it still improved a little. After the dragon control art's inner energy entered the evil dark dragon's body, it stimulated it greatly. Chu could clearly feel that the dragon taming technique's inner energy was like a matchstick. When it entered its body, it felt as if it had fallen into a sea of oil. Suddenly, a monstrous fire surged and produced a violent force that tore at the evil underworld dragon. Chu frowned worriedly. This situation had never happened before. The evil dark dragon was torn apart by this violent power, and its scales began to fall off one by one. After the black jade-like scales fell off, it revealed snow-white scales. These scales were exceptionally exquisite, as if they were cast from white jade. They even had strange cloud patterns on them, and there was a faintly discernible brilliance circulating within the cloud patterns. The dragon claw had 5 fingers instead of 3. The dragon's beard grew longer. Its outer appearance did not change. It was still 15 meters long and as thick as 2 people. It cried out in pain at the edge of the icy pond. Chuli was worried, but he did not stop channeling the dragon taming technique. The scripture of life and death extracted the spiritual energy from beyond the heavens, which was rich and pure, causing the inner energy of the art of dragon control to be endless. On the other hand, the evil nether dragon was like a bottomless pit, devouring the dragon taming technique's inner energy without leaving anything behind. No matter how hard Chuli tried to pour it in, it showed no signs of being satisfied. As time passed, it was still undergoing subtle changes. It became more and more beautiful, and in the end, it turned into an elegant white dragon. Its body moved slightly, and a moon-white luster circulated around its body. Under the moonlight, it looked like a white jade sculpture. Chuli was shocked. He did not expect it to undergo such a huge change. Boom! There was an explosion, and Chuli's hair stood on end. He was very familiar with this feeling, so he immediately knew what was going to happen. He issued a command in his mind, "Water in." Although the evil dark dragon didn't know why, it still slid into the water and silently entered the ice pond. Even though it was in the water, it still looked up at the sky. It saw a crack suddenly appear in the sky, and a zigzag lightning bolt appeared. Crack! There was a loud sound, and the lightning bolt instantly fell into the ice pond. The ice pond immediately flashed, and the pond was filled with lightning. Chuli gritted his teeth, and his body stiffened. He desperately used the dragon taming technique to resist this lightning bolt with the evil dark dragon. This was a heavenly tribulation. It seemed like the evil dark dragon had completely transformed into a dragon. To transform into a dragon, it had to undergo heavenly tribulation. This was the old rule. 9 out of 10 dragons would die under heavenly tribulation because dragons were too powerful. The golden dragon could become a supreme spirit beast, and it affected the heavens. Crack! Crack! Lightning bolts fell one after another. The old ones in the ice pond did not disappear, but new ones had already appeared, turning the ice pond into a pool of lightning. Chuli and the evil dark dragon bathed in this pool of lightning, and they became weaker and weaker. The lightning was extremely domineering, and it destroyed the two's vitality wantonly. But at the same time, the lightning also contained a strong vitality, and it depended on whether they could use this vitality. Chuli had the experience to deal with it, so he suddenly gave up on the dragon taming technique and visualized the tree of life and death in his mind. The tree of life and death slowly appeared through the endless void, and the vicissitudes of time filled the surroundings. The Buddhas, demons, and Vajras in Chuli's mind all closed their eyes and only allowed the tree of life and death to stand majestically in the void. Under the lightning, Chuli and the evil dark dragon began to weaken, and then their appearances gradually changed. Chuli became as withered as an old tree, and the same was true for the evil dark dragon. The jade-white scales on its body began to dim, and then they began to fall. Chuli wanted to borrow the vitality from the heavenly tribulation to strengthen the evil dark dragon, so he could only use the life and death scripture. Otherwise, with just the dragon taming technique and the evil dark dragon, it would be very difficult to survive, because it was too sudden, and there was no preparation at all. He really wanted to directly move the evil dark dragon into a metal tower, or even a bronze tower. Unfortunately, this heavenly tribulation was too huge, and those bronze towers and towers were completely useless. Under this kind of heavenly tribulation, they could only be turned into ashes. The two were almost in a deathly silence. The power of the lightning was still blasting, and the ice pool was dyed blue. Lightning flashed, and the entire pool seemed to be reduced by a bit. One dragon and one person floated in the lightning, not moving at all. Gradually, one dragon and one person became stronger, and their vitality became stronger and stronger. In the end, the white dragon that the evil dark dragon had turned into became more and more gentle, like a white jade that had seeped into water. It suddenly stretched out of the ice pool, raised its head, and roared at the lightning. The dragon's roar echoed in the night sky, and traveled very far. The lightning slowly dispersed. Chuli couldn't help but be speechless. This heavenly tribulation was many times stronger than when he saved Seoshur. If it wasn't for the life and death scripture, he would have died without a doubt. If it wasn't for the life and death scripture, the evil dark dragon would have died without a doubt. The dragon's roar sounded again, and the evil dark dragon suddenly rose into the sky. A faintly discernible mist gathered from all directions, and slowly lifted it up, and it rose higher and higher. Chuli sat on its back, and watched as the ice pool got further and further away from him. He couldn't help but feel excited. Being able to fly meant that it had truly stepped into the ranks of dragons, and not just a dragon species, but not a true dragon. The evil dark dragon let out another dragon's roar, revealing its excitement and pride. Chuli patted its back and told it to speed up. The evil dark dragon's body immediately swam, and the mist around it became thicker. Its speed suddenly increased, and it shot out like an arrow that had left the bow. It let out another dragon's roar in the air, and it was proud and satisfied. Roar! An angry roar came from afar. It sounded like a lion, but it also sounded like a fierce tiger. Chuli's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. The evil dark dragon also trembled, as if it had been startled. It turned its head to look into the distance, and then carefully changed its direction, flying in the direction of the ice pool again. Chuli couldn't help but laugh. Even though it had turned into a true dragon, it couldn't be presumptuous in the 100,000 hills. There were still spirit beasts above spirit beasts. Chuli muttered to himself, and estimated its strength. Chapter 1594. Chuli was excited. A rank 2 spirit beast was incredible. In the 100,000 hills, as long as he didn't encounter a rank 1 spirit beast or a supreme rank, he could advance and retreat freely. However, seeing that the spirit-devouring turtle was so powerful and still stayed in the ice pool, he knew the rules of the 100,000 hills. Every spirit beast had its own territory, and it was best not to intrude. He thought about it, and suddenly the dragon and the man disappeared. The next moment, they appeared in the valley of 10 Peak. The evil dark dragon suddenly roared, showing its dissatisfaction. It really didn't want to return to this sad place. Chuli comforted it and saw the motionless spirit-devouring turtle on the grass. The spirit-engulfing turtle's head had just popped out, and it was facing the bright moon above the valley. There seemed to be a streak of white light descending from the moon into its mouth, and it endured the white light without moving. Chuli was surprised and signaled the evil dark dragon not to move and not to disturb the spirit-devouring turtle. He pushed the omniscient mirror to the limit, and the heavenly star insight technique was also activated, staring at the spirit-devouring turtle's body. Its tortoise shell seemed to be flickering with a faint brilliance, absorbing the clear radiance that fell on it. Chuli saw the situation inside the spirit-devouring turtle's body clearly. 36 strange meridians flowed with moonlight, as if 36 white lights were connecting its body. Chuli immediately imprinted the meridians and the direction of the moonlight flow in his mind. This was the spirit-devouring turtle's channeling route and heart technique. It seemed like it could cultivate by itself, just like humans. This made him overjoyed, and he faintly felt that this might be the origin of the black tortoise power. He had the heavenly star insight technique, and he could derive this technique. Maybe he could really derive the Black Tortoise power, and he wouldn't need to disguise himself as a disciple of the Black Tortoise Mountain to sneak in and learn the technique. The spirit-devouring turtle breathed in and out the moonlight, and its body was recovering its strength. Chu couldn't help but admire it. To be able to use the moonlight to cultivate this was a unique talent. No wonder it could become a rank 2 spirit beast. When the moon left the valley, and the moonlight only shone on the mountain walls, the spirit-devouring turtle retracted its head and pretended to be dead. Chu shook his head and laughed. He landed on its shell and used the dragon taming technique again, torturing it again. The evil dark dragon, who was watching from the side, suddenly let out a dragon roar. The deafening sound reverberated in the valley. Chu Li's blood was shaken, and he almost vomited blood. He could not help but be surprised. He did not expect the evil dark dragon to be so powerful. Moreover, this dragon cry contained a strange offensive power that could even affect one's soul, making them feel a sense of fear. This was the power of a dragon's might. It seemed that becoming a true dragon this time had stimulated the inheritance and power in its bloodline, and it had learned this kind of dragon might without a teacher. Once again, Chu Li marveled at the spirit beast's unique gift. There was no need for them to learn it at all. It was directly imprinted in their bloodline. When their power reached a certain level, a new cultivation method would naturally emerge, and they would just have to cultivate accordingly. Unlike him, who had to rack his brains to find the divine art, he couldn't even find it. The spirit-engulfing turtle suddenly poked its head out and glared at the evil dark dragon with its obsidian eyes without any fear. The evil dark dragon also stared at it majestically. One dragon and one turtle faced off, and the surrounding air suddenly froze. Chu Li took a step back to see if the evil dark dragon had improved and if it dared to face the spirit-engulfing turtle again. The last time it was bitten, the evil dark dragon was traumatized. Chu Li understood that this kind of pain was beyond the limits of pain. Just thinking about it made one shudder and feel numb all over. The evil dark dragon let out another dragon cry. It gathered its courage and suddenly leaped toward the spirit-engulfing turtle, taking the initiative to attack. The spirit-engulfing turtle poked its head out and bit as fast as lightning. The evil dark dragon turned its body, and the dragon claw hidden under its abdomen swatted over. Bam! The spirit-engulfing turtle staggered and instantly retracted its head. Bam, 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 bam! The evil dark dragon waved its dragon claw and kept hitting the turtle shell. The turtle shell kept retreating, and the spirit-engulfing turtle didn't dare to show its head. It could only shrink inside the shell and let the evil dark dragon hit its shell. Bam! The spirit-engulfing turtle fell into the pool. The evil dark dragon followed closely behind. Suddenly, all the water in the pool began to spin, forming a huge whirlpool that sucked in the spirit-engulfing turtle, as if it was going to crush it. Chu Li saw that the spirit-engulfing turtle's shell was faintly glowing, and the patterns on the shell were clearly visible. At first glance, it seemed like these densely packed strange patterns were protecting the turtle's shell, not letting it get hurt. The evil dark dragon let out another dragon cry, and the pool water spun even faster, becoming even stronger. The spirit-engulfing turtle suddenly poked its head out and spat out a white light. Suddenly, the water around it slowed down, and the original whirlpool seemed to be on the verge of collapse. The evil dark dragon roared, and the whirlpool sped up again, spinning again. The white light that the spirit-engulfing turtle spat out dissipated, and it could no longer control the pool water. The spirit-engulfing turtle spat out another white light, disrupting the whirlpool again, and the evil dark dragon restored it to normal. One destroyed while the other maintained. The spirit-engulfing turtle was in the whirlpool, and the patterns on the turtle shell became clearer and larger, as if they were going to leave the turtle shell and float into the air. Chu Li smiled. It seemed like the evil dark dragon had reached the level of a rank 2 spirit beast. Bang! The spirit-engulfing turtle suddenly leaped out, exceeding the evil dark dragon's and Chu Li's expectations. As if it could fly, it directly jumped out of the pool and landed on the grass at the side. The evil dark dragon felt like it had been tricked, and with an angry roar, came out of the water and swung its claws at the spirit-engulfing turtle again. Chu Li shook his head, and suddenly appeared on the back of the spirit-engulfing turtle. Ignoring the strange resistance, he placed his palms on the patterns and began to circulate the dragon taming technique. The dragon taming technique showed its strangeness. It directly passed through the patterns, landed on the turtle shell, and then entered the spirit-engulfing turtle's body. The dragon taming technique began to wreak havoc in its body, and the spirit-engulfing turtle's original hesitation caused its head to be struck by a dragon claw. The dragon claw was extremely powerful, and it was as sharp as a sword. After the spirit-engulfing turtle's head was hit, it was not injured, and it quickly retracted into the turtle shell, returning to its original appearance. Chu Li waved his hand, indicating that the evil dark dragon did not need to rush. He circulated the power of the dragon taming technique and continuously tortured the spirit-engulfing turtle. After 2 hours, it suddenly showed a hint of wanting to beg Chu Li for mercy. Chu Li sent it a cold smile, and continued to torture it with the dragon taming technique. The spirit-engulfing turtle's heart begged for mercy, saying that it wanted to be like the evil dark dragon, listen to his orders, and be his mount. Chu Li shook his head and sneered, but he did not believe it. The evil dark dragon was willing to be his mount not only because of the dragon taming technique, but also because he had saved it in the past. It was grateful, so it was willing to let him circulate the dragon taming technique to strengthen it. The spirit-engulfing turtle was different. It had an extremely long lifespan, and it was very cunning. As a rank 2 spirit beast, how could it submit to a human? Humans were just ants in its eyes, and it had never looked at them seriously. The spirit-engulfing turtle continued to beg for mercy, and also promised to be a mount. Chu Li finally agreed, and retracted the dragon taming technique. He wanted to see what other tricks the spirit-engulfing turtle had. The spirit-engulfing turtle's mind was very deep. Although the omniscient mirror could see through its body, it could not see through its mind. He could only communicate with it through the combination of the dragon taming technique and the omniscient mirror. Chu Li did not dare to trust such an old thing, and he had been on guard. But if it could really submit, that would be a good thing, and he could study the black tortoise power in detail. Chapter 1595. To deal with a second-rank spirit beast like the spirit-devouring turtle, there was no other way but to beat it until it was completely convinced. Just think about how an ant could make a person surrender and beg for mercy. If he could not make it unable to fight back, and have no choice but to be obedient, it would not surrender at all and would even take the opportunity to cause trouble. Once this kind of spirit beast caused trouble, it was extremely dangerous and could even endanger the safety of the people around it. If it suddenly went crazy when Shao Qi and Shao Shi came to the 100,000 hills, it would be too late for regret. Chu Li thought about it and rode on the back of the evil nether dragon. It could no longer be called the evil nether dragon, it had become a white dragon. Riding on the back of the white dragon, Chu Li pressed his hand on the shell of the spirit-devouring turtle. The dragon, the turtle, and the human suddenly disappeared from the Valley of 10 Peaks and appeared in the ice pool of the 100,000 hills. Suddenly, a rich spiritual energy surged. Roar! The white dragon roared and the surroundings shook. The spirit-devouring turtle immediately dived into the ice pool. Chu Li snorted. This old guy really had a problem. It was just an expedient and did not really surrender. There was a formation below that could hide its whereabouts. It usually lay in the formation, and once a spirit beast dived into the ice pool, it would suddenly appear and devour it. The spirit beasts that could be tricked were already dead, so no other spirit beasts approached the ice pool. Only the spirit cranes did not descend from the sky, and the spirit-devouring turtle could do nothing about it. When Chuli was thrown into the ice pool to be cleansed, it was because in the eyes of the spirit-devouring turtle, he was like an ant that was not worth mentioning. It was too lazy to move to expel it, so he was safe. Chuli was a little scared. The spirit cranes were too risky. If the spirit-devouring turtle had a sudden impulse and really wanted to kill him, then he would not have been able to escape. The white dragon saw it running down and was instantly furious. The ice pool opened again and the water surged, hindering the spirit-devouring turtle's advance. Unfortunately, the spirit-devouring turtle was also good at water. Even though it was swimming against the current, it was still extremely fast. Its shell emitted a hazy brilliance as if it was moving, and it instantly disappeared at the bottom of the pool. The brilliance faded. The white dragon roared and suddenly the ice pool boiled. Chuli shook his head and patted the white dragon, signaling it to calm down. A moment later, another ball of light rose from the bottom of the pond. It was the spirit-devouring turtle. Its entire body shone brightly. Its 4 legs were desperately running, but it stopped in its original spot. Its entire body shone brilliantly, like a bright moon falling into the bottom of a pond. Moreover, it was getting brighter and brighter. The white dragon turned to look at Chuli. Chuli sent his thoughts over. He had already set up a formation at the bottom of the pond and was waiting for the spirit-devouring turtle to jump in. He wanted to see what tricks it would play this time. The white dragon thrashed around excitedly before diving to the bottom of the pond in a flash. It swam around the spirit-devouring turtle and circled around it, as if it were showing off and mocking it. The spirit-devouring turtle could see the white dragon clearly, but it was unable to escape from the formation. Chu-Li's formation was like a bottomless pit, endlessly devouring the spirit-devouring turtle's spiritual energy. The spirit-devouring turtle tried its best to resist, trying to escape, but it never succeeded. Shaking his head and sighing, Chu-Li suddenly disappeared. With the white dragon here, the spirit-devouring tortoise would not be able to do anything. As it devoured the spirit-devouring tortoise's spiritual energy, the formation would become stronger and the spirit-devouring tortoise would become weaker. He wanted to go back and ask his master why the evil nether dragon had not become a golden dragon. As soon as he appeared on Goddess Attraction Mountain and was about to ask his master for advice, he saw the situation in his courtyard in his mind. Shao Qi and Lu Yurong were fighting. Shao Qi stood quietly on the spot while Lu Yurong floated like a fairy. Her palms were like white jade, and there seemed to be a clear spring flowing under her skin. Bang 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 bang! The sounds of explosions were endless. Lu Yurong's palms hit the void, causing a sudden gust of wind. Both of their white robes fluttered in the wind, making them look like fairies. Shao Qi's regal sword seemed to be endless. She was like a fish in water when she used it on Goddess Attraction Mountain. The spiritual energy on Goddess Attraction Mountain was beyond imagination, so it was exceptionally easy for the regal sword to absorb spiritual energy from the outland. It was the same for Lu Yurong. Chu-Li could see a shadow behind her, with her clothes fluttering. Although he could not see the face, he could feel that it was a fairy standing in the void and staring at Lu Yurong. The fairy was absorbing spiritual energy from the outland and channeling it into Lu Yurong's body, providing her with an endless supply of energy. Chu-Li shook his head and sighed. He did not expect the two to cultivate similar technique. Although one was using the regal sword while the other was the elusive ninth heaven fairy, the way they channeled their techniques was similar. It was obvious that they were both Outland's martial arts. In today's world, only Outland's martial arts could stand proudly. It was not without reason. It was obvious from their battle that they could absorb spiritual energy from the Outland, so it was naturally purer and more powerful than the spiritual energy in this world. More importantly, Outland's martial arts were more exquisite. Compared to Spirit Beast's martial arts, it had an additional medium to absorb spiritual energy. If Chu Li's dragon taming technique did not have the life and death scripture, he would not be a match for the two ladies. Dong Jianxin appeared quietly. Chu Li turned and fist saluted. Senior brother. Dong Jianxin smiled. Why didn't you go back? His smile was filled with schadenfreude. Chu Li said, I was about to ask Master about something. You don't dare to go back, right? Dong Jianxin smiled faintly. What is it? Let me see if I know. After the evil nether dragon transformed into a dragon, how did it turn into a white dragon? Chu Li asked. Dong Jianxin pondered for a moment. It seems that you still don't understand the levels of dragons. Chu Li listened attentively. Dong Jianxin said, White dragon, azure dragon, purple dragon, and gold dragon, the four major levels are promoted level by level. It is not born a gold dragon. Master's dragon became an enlightened master together with him. It was blessed by the power of heaven and earth, and thus stepped into the gold dragon level. It was originally just a azure dragon. Chu Li suddenly understood. Dong Jianxin said, the dragon taming technique can improve the dragon's level, and it is very fast. It only took 30 years for Master's white dragon to become an azure dragon. 30 years. Chu Li smiled bitterly. Dong Jianxin said, You think it is slow? You must know that the life of a dragon is very long. It can often live for more than 10,000 years. It is already very fast to advance one level in 1,000 years. Master's azure dragon only took 30 years. Think about the power of the dragon taming technique. Chu Li nodded slowly. Now that he said it, it was true. 30 years was more than 30 times different than 1,000 years. Then what is the white dragon considered as a spirit beast? Chu Li asked. Dong Jianxin said, second rank. Only second rank? The white dragon is still very weak. The azure dragon is different. It is only considered first rank. The purple dragon and gold dragon are superior rank. Dong Jianxin said. Chu Li smiled and said, Then wouldn't Master be able to ride the gold dragon freely in the 100,000 hills? Master's gold dragon can't enter the 100,000 hills. Dong Jianxin shook his head and said, Master can't enter either. The gold dragon and Master are bound by the heavenly rules. Chu Li was surprised and said, Why can't it enter the 100,000 hills? He really didn't know this rule. The 100,000 hills is the territory of the outland for spirit beasts. Enlightened masters are not allowed to enter. Dong Jianxin said, This is also the condition for spirit beasts to enter the 100,000 hills. It is also considered an alliance. Chu Li smiled and said, An alliance between the outland and spirit beasts? Master occasionally talked about this alliance. Only the enlightened masters know about this alliance. Dong Jianxin said, Moreover, enlightened masters will definitely die if they enter the 100,000 hills. There are many superior spirit beasts in the 100,000 hills. As soon as an enlightened master enters, they will sense it and immediately surround and kill it. Let alone superior spirit beasts, enlightened masters can't even defeat a first-rank spirit beast. Chapter 1596. Chu Li nodded slowly. He had a deep understanding of how powerful spirit beasts were. Even though he was now not inferior to an enlightened master, it was still very difficult for him to deal with a second-grade spirit beast. If not for the white dragon's help, he would not have dared to release the spirit-devouring turtle back to the 100,000 mountains. Dong Jianxin sighed and said, The sky beyond heaven has set a rule that gods are not allowed to step into the 100,000 huge mountains, in order to avoid provoking the spirit beasts and letting them run out of the 100,000 huge mountains again. At that time, I really don't know if the human race will be extinct. Chu Li's expression changed slightly, and he seemed to be deep in thought. Dong Jian said in his heart, Although I have never been to the Shirwan Mountains, I have heard Shifu mention that the spiritual beasts in the Shirwan Mountains have not degenerated, but we humans have degenerated. We are far inferior to the ancient people. Chu Li sighed and said, "It's hard to tell whether this is a blessing or a curse, but it's very difficult for the spirit beasts to come out of the 100,000 hills. The spiritual energy is too poor. If they're angered, they'll definitely come out to show off their might and exterminate the humans along the way," Dong Jian thought. Chu Li smiled. "Senior brother, you're thinking too far ahead. As Goddess Attraction Mountain, we naturally have to think a bit further." Dong Jian thought to himself, "We can't help but be on guard." Chu Li said, "Senior brother, don't bother yourself. Let's not talk about the fact that enlightened masters can't defeat a rank 1 spirit beast. Even if they can, they'll only die at the hands of a supreme rank spirit beast. Moreover, there are so few enlightened masters, so how can they provoke the spirit beast? If this goes on, the enlightened masters will only become stronger." "That's true." Dong Jianxin nodded his head. "I think the new generation of gods will be very strong. For example, Sun Mingyue is much stronger than her master, and Tang Su is also much stronger than Tang Haotian." Chu Li smiled and nodded. "Master, if you can't enter the 100,000 hills, won't you be unable to find some spirit herbs?" "I can only find someone to help me," Dong Jian said in his heart. "Do you need spirit grasses?" Chu Li shook his head. Dong Jian said in his heart, "In short, you have mastered the art of the dragon subduing in one breath. You can be said to be the number 1 in our Goddess Attraction Mountain, even more powerful than master." "I want to cultivate the other 3 heart techniques," Chu Li said. "I have nothing better to do anyway." "I see." Dong Jianxin frowned. Chu Li asked, "Does senior brother have a way to get the other 3 heart techniques?" "There's no other way." Dong Jianxin shook his head and said, "Master can't do anything about it." The Black Tortoise divine art is still around, and its inheritance hasn't been severed, but Black Tortoise Mountain has Empyrean gods. It's impossible for Black Tortoise Mountain's cultivation method to be spread to outsiders, unless you become a disciple of Black Tortoise Mountain. Chu Li could not help but laugh. Dong Jianxin cast a sidelong glance at him and said, "Don't think that Black Tortoise Mountain is weak. Think about it, among all the major sects in the world today, which one of them actually has a heavenly deity cultivating a spiritual beast heart technique?" Chu Li nodded slowly. Dong Jianxin snorted and said, "Only our Immortal Attraction Mountain and Black Tortoise Mountain can compete. It's just that our Immortal Attraction Mountain has the geographical advantage, and is a notch above them. Otherwise, who knows who is stronger and who is weaker?" Chu Li asked, "Is the Black Tortoise Mountain really that strong?" "The Black Tortoise divine art is not inferior to our art of dragon control," Dong Jian said in his heart. "It's almost impossible for you to obtain the Black Tortoise divine exercise. Even if you go and take him as your disciple, he won't agree, so you'd better give up on this idea. If you have the leisure time, help your white dragon take a step further. Master can't wait until you upgrade the white dragon to the azure dragon before he can ascend to heaven." Chu Li sighed. "What about the other 2 heart techniques?" "The inheritance has been broken." Dong Jianxin sighed and said, "It's really a pity. Those are heart techniques that are on par with our art of dragon control." "No clues at all?" Chu Li said. "Which faction did they belong to in the beginning?" "The Church of Longevity." Dong Jianxin said, "It's a pity that the Church of Longevity has been completely annihilated. The inheritance has also been broken, so it's impossible for these 2 heart techniques to reappear in the world. You should just give up on this idea." "The Church of Longevity," Chu Li said thoughtfully. "This sky-killing sword of mine belongs to the Church of Longevity, right? It seems that you know quite a lot." Dong Jianxin looked at him curiously. This was a secret among secret. It would almost never be spread to the outside world. There were very few people who knew about it, and the number of people who knew about it was decreasing. Chu Li smiled and said, "I've heard about it occasionally. I only know that the Church of Longevity has been annihilated. The sky-killing sword is the treasure sword of the Church of Longevity. That's right. This sky-killing sword is known as an ominous sword because of the fate of its original owner. Dong Jinshin sighed and said, the owner of the sword was the Church of Longevity's leader, Song Wuji. His martial arts was the best in the world. Almost no one could compare to him. Later, the Church of Longevity provoked the enlightened masters to besiege them. He killed them until they pissed their pants in terror and suffered a crushing defeat. Chu Li nodded. I'm really fascinated by your spirit. This is not a good thing. Dong Jinshin shook his head and smiled bitterly. There is no good ending for going against the world. Didn't you see the arrogant Church of Longevity vanish into thin air? Chu Li smiled and nodded. This was reasonable. Dong Jinshin said, after Song Wuji killed those enlightened masters, he directly ascended to the sky. He didn't take this sword with him. He felt that it was too fierce, so he left it aside and ascended to the outland. Chu Li said, he ascended to the sky? He ascended to the sky physically. Dong Jinshin sighed and said, 4,000 of years, there was only one person who ascended to the sky physically. Chu Li pondered and did not say anything. He knew that when enlightened masters like Song Wanqing ascended to the sky, it was usually their souls that ascended to the sky. Their bodies were left in this world to form the enlightened master's remains. It also had special uses. The surroundings of the enlightened master's remains formed a strange enlightened master's field. By comprehending the enlightened master's field, one could cultivate to become an enlightened master. Although it was only a kind of fake enlightened master, his cultivation level was abnormally deep and far superior to the grandmasters. Chu Li said, he did it because he killed those enlightened masters? According to Master, it was not so. Dong Jinshin shook his head and said, those enlightened masters were unlucky. Song Wuji had actually cultivated to the state of perfection. Enlightened masters are also divided into realms. After perfection, he was about to break through the void and enter the outland. Coincidentally, these enlightened masters besieged the Church of Longevity. They were beaten to a pulp and only 1 out of 10 survived. Chu Li smiled. It was not bad luck. It was because this church leader Song had extraordinary means. He must have sent someone to instigate them. Before he ascended to the sky, he took care of these enlightened masters and gave the Church of Longevity a chance to breathe. That's true. Dong Jinshin was stunned and suddenly realized. When he heard it, he also felt that it was too coincidental. He did not think about this and only thought it was luck. After Chu Li pointed it out, he immediately realized that it should be so. It turned out to be a conspiracy. However, it was not the enlightened masters who plotted against the Church of Longevity. It was Song Wuji who plotted against the enlightened masters. Chu Li said, could it be that church leader Song entered the outland from our goddess attraction mountain? That's right. Dong Jinshin smiled. How did you guess? Chu Li shook his head. It was a guess. Did he leave the heaven-killing sword to us? Yes. Dong Jinshin said. He felt that the heaven-killing sword was too fierce and harmful to the harmony of heaven. So he abandoned it and left it at our goddess attraction mountain. He put it under the scorching sun to eliminate its fierce energy. He also passed down the heaven-killing 3 forms. Chu Li smiled. How broad-minded. He probably felt that it did not matter. It was a pity that the heaven-killing 3 forms were lost, so he passed it down. Dong Jinshin smiled. But only you, junior brother Chu, could cultivate the heaven-killing 3 forms. I did not manage to cultivate it. Chu Li said, then how did the Church of Longevity perish in the end? Nobody knows. Dong Jinshin shook his head and sighed. Master doesn't know either. Anyway, when the Grandmaster went to look for the Church of Longevity, he was no longer there. The Church of Longevity's altar was empty. Everyone disappeared. Chu Li pondered. If that's the case, the Church of Longevity might still have an inheritance. Chapter 1597. If that's the case, we're related to the leader of the Changshan faction? Chu Li was surprised. Dong Jianxin nodded. Yes, but there's nothing else. What a pity. Chu Li shook his head. It's a pity that such a powerful faction disappeared. Who said it wasn't? Dong Jianxin smiled and continued, but Master also said that this might be Leader Song's arrangement. I'm afraid there's no place for the Changshan faction anymore. Chu Li nodded slowly. That's true. They can tolerate Goddess Attraction Mountain, but not the Changshan faction. After killing so many enlightened masters, they had become public enemies. After Song Wuji left, how could the remaining enlightened masters not seek revenge? Or because they coveted the Changshan faction's martial arts, they would not let them go. Disappearing like this was the only way. He was excited. If that's the case, the inheritance of the Changshan faction might not be extinct. It might not be extinct, but it hasn't been cultivated. Dong Jianxin said, and don't count on it. In this era, the truly powerful antique studies are passed down from the outland. Antique studies of spirit beasts have no future. Chu Li asked, the Changshan faction's martial arts are antique studies of spirit beasts? Dong Jianxin shook his head. I guess so, or else there would be enlightened masters. Chu Li smiled. I don't think so. Maybe they've been hiding for a long time. Maybe they want to revive the faction. Ha ha! Dong Jianxin laughed. You're so imaginative. As the two were talking, footsteps were heard. Xiao Qi and Lu Yurong arrived. Dong Jianxin smiled and looked at Chu Li. Chu Li smiled. Madam and Miss Lu, are you done sparring? Lu Yurong shook her head and sighed. Third Lady Zhao's regal sword scripture is really powerful. The Empyrean fairy power is the same, Xiao Qi said. Chu Li said, both of you are cultivating mystical techniques, whose stronger or weaker depends on your cultivation level. Our cultivation levels are similar. We've sparred twice and it ended in a draw, Xiao Qi said. She was a little disappointed. She did not expect that she could not suppress Lu Yurong even though she had suddenly reached such a level. She did not have a strong desire to win, nor was she competitive. However, she had suffered too many losses at Lu Yurong's hands. She always had an obsession to beat Lu Yurong once, but unfortunately, her wish never came true. Until now, when she saw Lu Yurong staying at Goddess Attraction Mountain, she felt that there was a little hope. She did not expect that she still could not beat Lu Yurong. Lu Yurong smiled and said, if it wasn't for the fact that I've improved by leaps and bounds recently and had a sudden epiphany, I really wouldn't be a match for you, Third Lady. I was just lucky. Xiao Qi gave her a sidelong glance but did not say anything. Chu Li said, if that's the case, let's spar more often. Dong Jianxin secretly gave him a thumbs up. As expected of junior brother Chu, his expression didn't change even in such a situation. Admirable. Lu Yurong said, Chu Li, I should leave too. Chu Li was stunned. You're leaving? This is a holy land for cultivation. At my current level, it's very difficult for me to improve further. I need time to accumulate. It doesn't matter where I cultivate, Lu Yurong said. It's not sensible of me to disturb you and Xiao Qi here. Chu Li glanced at Dong Jianxin. Dong Jianxin coughed lightly, closed fist, saluted and left. After waiting for him to leave, Chu Li frowned and said, is it uncomfortable staying on the mountain? Lu Yurong shook her head and said, I really don't want to stay any longer. I'm worried about the public house. All right. Chu Li slowly nodded. It was indeed not appropriate for him to ask her to stay. Now that Tang Yi and Tang Haotian were dead, Tang Su might not provoke him again. Therefore, there was no danger for Lu Yurong to leave the mountain. Moreover, if she was not in the public house for a long time, she would indeed be worried. Xiao Qi said, in my opinion, you should go back to the public house first. If there's nothing going on there, then come back to cultivate. After all, cultivating here is much better than outside. Since Third Lady has invited me, then I will respectfully accept. Lu Yurong pursed her lips and smiled. Shao Qi glanced at Chu Li and smiled faintly. Chu Li pretended not to see and nodded. In the dark of the night, Chu Li suddenly appeared on the Jade Guardian Island of the public house with Shao Qi in his arms. Shao Qi went to meet Xiao Taiying and the others, while Chu Li returned to his courtyard. He saw Li Meng, who was curiously looking at the spirit herbs under the Glories Will tree. In the brightly lit courtyard, Li Meng was dressed in an emerald gown. She looked beautiful. When she saw him, Li Meng pouted and closed-fist saluted. Chu Li waved his hand. Have you eaten? If I don't eat now, I'm going to starve to death. Li Meng said, What should I do? Should I cultivate? You haven't taught me martial arts yet. Didn't Master ask you to teach me the scripture of great light? Do you know how to recite Buddhist scriptures now? Chu Li asked. Of course. Li Meng nodded. I didn't waste the past 6 months. I'm the most skilled at reciting scriptures. All right then, from today onwards, you will recite the scripture of great light. Chu Li said. As he spoke, he suddenly waved his hand. Li Mingxue flew in front of him and watched helplessly as Chu Li raised his hand. Then, she took the initiative to touch his finger with her forehead. Suddenly, there was a boom, and golden words the size of a fist flashed in front of her eyes. Chu Li nodded in satisfaction and retracted his hand. Li Meng was stunned. After a while, she regained her senses and widened her eyes at Chu Li curiously. Chu Li said, Do you recognize these words? Recite them 300 times a day. 300 times! Li Meng cried out. Chu Li said, For the first 10 days, 300 times a day. After 10 days, you have to recite them 500 times a day. After a month, you have to recite them 1,000 times. You! Li Meng looked angry. How can I recite them so many times? If I really do that, I'll go crazy. Let's see if you'll go crazy. Chu Li said. Li Meng said, Do I have a grudge against you? Chu Li smiled. If you really have a grudge against me, can you still speak in front of me? Have a good rest today. We'll start tomorrow. After he said that, he turned and left the courtyard, leaving Li Meng stomping her feet angrily in the courtyard. Early in the morning, Chu Li sent Shao Qi to Xiao Shi's place. After eating with the 2 ladies, he went to 100,000 Hills. He saw that the spirit-devouring turtle was still bound by the formation and was getting weaker. The formation that he set up was called the Immortal Binding Formation. It was specially used to bind people. It had no other functions. As long as one was bound, the more they struggled, the stronger the formation would become. It would absorb the energy of the bound person. The more they struggled, the stronger it would become. The spirit-devouring turtle was motionless. Even its head and legs were curled up. The white dragon was bored. When it saw Chu Li, it hurried over. Chu Li caressed it and activated the dragon taming technique to calm its anxiety. He shook his head helplessly. It seemed that the spirit-devouring turtle was going to waste its energy on him. Chu Li chuckled and gently went to the turtle's shell. Instantly, the inner energy of the dragon taming technique entered and stirred. The spirit-devouring turtle trembled. It felt pain again and immediately begged for mercy. This time, Chu Li restrained his soft-heartedness and continued to activate the dragon taming technique. After an hour, he stopped and patted the white dragon. He disappeared again. He sensed that something happened at the High Duke's public house. As soon as he appeared, Shui glided into the courtyard and curtsied. Master, there's a guest in the public house. He wants to see you, Master. Who is it? Chu Li asked. Chapter 1598. Chu Li looked at Xueling. Xueling's jade face was solemn and her eyes were bright. What's going on? Chu Li frowned. He was not in a hurry. Xueling said, These 2 people directly came to see you. The protectors said that you were not around, so they fought their way in. Their martial arts are very strange and their cultivation level is very high. No one is their match. Chu Li smiled. Looks like someone really dares to break into the High Duke's public house. Ever since he became famous, the mighty name of the enlightened master god-slaying spread all over the world, and no one in the public house dared to provoke him. His reputation had been built up step by step, and his foundation was very stable. He did not rise to the sky in a single bound, which aroused suspicion. The reputation of Chu Li in the north and Du Feng in the south had spread all over the world back then, and the enlightened master god-slaying hand had gone one step further and reached its peak, like the sun in the sky. Li Meng, who was chanting under the Glories Will tree, came over and looked at her curiously. Xueling said, "Looks like they came prepared. Their cultivation level is high, master must not be careless." "All right then, let's go take a look." Chu Li nodded. "Where's the eldest master?" He saw that eldest young master Xiao Taiying and Xiao Baihe were not in the mansion. Xueling said, "The eldest master accompanied the madam back to her parents' home. The second master did not come back last night. He must be at the New Moon brothel." "Second young master is at the New Moon brothel?" Chu Li was surprised. Xueling nodded lightly. "Second master likes Sister Hong Xiu very much, but Sister Hong Xiu has been avoiding second master, so I really don't know." Chu Li smiled. "Is Lady Hong Xiu hiding from second young master because she feels inferior and feels that her identity is not worthy?" "Yes." Xueling nodded and said, "If he really enters the public house, Sister Hong Xiu thinks that second young master will become a laughingstock, so she has been hiding from him. However, second young master really likes Sister Hong Xiu." Chu Li sighed, shook his head and said, "Fine, let them be. You watch from the side and don't let Lady Hong Xiu do anything stupid." "Yes." Xueling nodded. "I've been keeping an eye on him." Li Meng's eyes widened as she listened to the story with keen interest. It turned out that the unattainable, rich, and glorious house of High Dukes also had such matters. Chu Li slowly walked out. Xueling hurriedly caught up with him. "Master, they don't come with good intentions. It's better not to make a move." Chu Li shook his head. "You might not get what you want." "Then let me do it," Xueling said. Chu Li sized her up and nodded. "I can give it a try." Xueling had always been by his side. She had received a lot of pointers from Chu Li and the help of spirit pills. Her cultivation level was much higher than that of a normal grandmaster. Chu Li used the omniscient mirror to observe the cultivation level of the two people. Xueling was on par with one of them. Li Meng followed closely behind. She was a little excited. Someone actually dared to barge into the public house to look for Chu Li. How interesting! Chu Li glanced at her and ignored her, tacitly agreeing to let her follow. The three of them arrived at the main hall. The main hall was empty, but there were already 2 cups of tea served. 2 handsome young men were carefully sipping the tea with carefree expressions, as if this was their own home. The 3 of them slowly entered the main hall. The 2 of them put down their teacups and raised their heads. Chu Li nodded at the 2 of them and said, "May I know who the 2 of you are? Why would you use such a drastic method to see me?" "You're Chu Li?" The handsome young man sitting at the head of the table was extremely handsome. His eyes shone with a condescending air as he looked at Chu Li calmly. He lowered his head and took another sip of tea. Chu Li nodded. "I'm Chu Li. You 2 are? I'm Song Jifan. This is Lu Jun. We're here to ask for a favor," the handsome young man said slowly. Chu Li smiled and sat opposite of them. Xueling came and stood behind him. Li Meng originally wanted to sit down, but she could only stand behind Chu Li when she saw the situation. She curiously looked at the 2 handsome young men, wondering why they had the guts to provoke Chu Li. Xueling clapped her hand. Immediately, 2 maids came in and served them tea. Xueling waved her hand and told herself that it was not necessary. The other maid would only serve tea to Chu Li. Chu Li took the teacup and took a sip. He slowly exhaled and raised his head to look at Song Jifan with a smile. Song Jifan stared at him. His eyes shone with interest as he sized him up. Chu Li smiled. "What business do you have, Master Song? Feel free to speak your mind. I've long heard of Chief Chu's name. I heard that you've killed an enlightened master, and you're also the master of the Fu dynasty, Tang Haotian. Now that I've seen you today, I'm impressed that your reputation is well-deserved. Your cultivation level is indeed high," Song Jifan said. Chu Li smiled. "Master Song, praising me is the same as praising yourself. In terms of cultivation level, Master Song is not below me." In terms of cultivation level, Song Jifan was indeed on par with him. However, he could feel the danger coming from Song Jifan. It was the same feeling he had when he encountered the spirit-devouring turtle. It reminded him to stay away from Song Jifan. The omniscient mirror could not see through his thoughts, but the star insight skill reminded him that this person was very dangerous. Once he went crazy, he would be unstoppable. It was better not to fight him head-on. Song Jifan laughed out loud. Good eyesight. As expected of Chu Li. Chu Li said, "I don't deserve that. Master Song, if you have something to say, just say it. There's no need to beat around the bush. I like to be straightforward and simple." "Alright, then I'll be straightforward. Chief Chu, can you let me take a look at the sword on your waist?" Song Jifan said. Chu Li's eyebrows twitched. He smiled and shook his head. "This sword is inauspicious. It's better not to look at it." The Sky Killer sword no longer had its ferocious aura. It was just a treasure sword that could cut through iron like mud. It was sharper than a normal treasure sword. This was already a rare treasure sword. Its sharpness alone was priceless. How could he hand over the Sky Killer sword to a stranger with ill intentions? Song Jifan stared at the treasure sword. He looked at Lu Jun, who was beside him, and smiled. "If I'm not mistaken, this is the Sky Killer sword, right?" Chu Li smiled. "Master Song, you know about the Sky Killer sword?" "Of course." Song Jifan smiled. "Because this was originally my sword." Chu Li was stunned. He smiled. "What do you mean? Chief Chu, do you know who the owner of this Sky Killer sword is?" Song Jifan asked. Chu Li shook his head. "I don't know." He suddenly understood that Song Jifan was probably Song Wuji's descendant. There were very few people in the world who knew about the Sky Killer sword. There were not many who could recognize it. Song Jifan smiled. "My ancestor, Song Wuji, was the owner of this Sky Killer sword. Later on, he disappeared and we lost track of this sword. I didn't expect it to appear in Chief Chu's hands." Chu Li's smile widened. "Then, Master Song, you mean? If Chief Chu can return this sword and fulfill my long-cherished wish, I will be extremely grateful," Song Jifan said. Chu Li smiled and shook his head. "Master Song, do you know how many owners the Sky Killer sword has had?" Song Jifan said, "I'm willing to hear the details." Chu Li said, "I don't know either. But if not 10, there are at least 20. The descendants of every sword owner came to ask for this sword. Wouldn't the Sky Killer sword be divided into 10 pieces?" "This sword was forged by my ancestor," Song Jifan said. Chu Li smiled and shook his head. "If that's the case, because this sword was forged by your ancestor, I have to return this sword to you." "Yes." Song Jifan nodded slowly. Chu Li said, "This sword was given to me by my master. If I give it to you directly, how can I explain to my master?" Chapter 1599. Chu Li laughed out loud and shook his head. "How would you know if my master is offended or not? You're not my master." Song Jifan's face darkened. The handsome young man next to him already had a gloomy face. He scoffed coldly. "So you're saying that you won't return the sword?" Chu Li nodded. Of course. How could I return the sword just because someone said it was mine? If it was that easy, wouldn't the world be at peace and there would be no more disputes? Very well, I knew you would do this. Lu Jun sneered and stood up. Then I'll use the martial arts world's way of dealing with it. I want to experience your martial arts and see if it's as amazing as the rumors say it is. Shui said lightly, You're not qualified to fight with Master just because of someone else. How arrogant! Lu Jun sneered. Looks like you're going to fight for him? If you can get past me, it won't be too late to fight with Master. Shui said lightly. Then I'll fight with you. Lu Jun stepped into the middle of the hall and waved his sleeves. More than 10 armchairs moved back and gave way to an empty space in the middle. He stepped on the thick and soft white carpet and closed fist saluted. Remember my name, Lu Jun. Shui. Shui took a step forward and approached him. It was as if she had a wheel under her feet. Her body did not move at all, showing off her excellent light body technique. Li Meng's eyes widened and her face was filled with envy. She wanted to cultivate martial arts the most, but Chu Li did not teach her martial arts. He only asked her to chant scriptures. After chanting for only 2 hours, she felt like her head was going to explode. Chanting scriptures could even make her fall asleep. Do it. Lu Jun scoffed. Shui did not hesitate and lightly struck out with her palm. An extremely cold aura instantly appeared in front of Lu Jun. Lu Jun extended his palm. Bang! Lu Jun took a step back and frowned at Shui. He did not expect Shui, who looked so weak and did not seem to have a high cultivation level, to have such a pure palm energy. He felt like his palm hit a block of ice. It was hard and pure. The cold penetrated through his palm and into his body. He channeled his inner energy to dissolve the force of the palm. His expression was solemn as he realized that he had underestimated Shui Ling. He rushed forward and attacked with his palm. It was as if a warm breeze was blowing in the main hall, dispersing the chill caused by Shui Ling's palm energy. Bang 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 bang! One of their palms was extremely cold, while the other was as warm as a spring breeze. They couldn't do anything to each other, so they struck out more than 100 palms in a single breath. The two auras intertwined in the hall, causing the hall to become hot and cold. Lu Jun suddenly changed his move and rushed forward. He wanted to fight Shui Ling in close combat. He wanted to use his strong body to suppress Shui Ling. Bang! The two palms collided. This time, it was not a long-range attack, but a direct collision of two palms. Bam! Lu Jun suddenly flew backwards and smashed a chair into pieces. He fell to the ground and stared at Shui Ling in disbelief. He had thought that his palm would be able to send Shui Ling flying, but in the end, he was the one who was sent flying. Shui Ling's fair little hand contained a strength as strong as a bear's, catching him off guard. Even if he had been prepared, he would not have been able to block it. Shui Ling looked at him indifferently and slid behind Chu Li. Chu Li smiled and looked at Song Jifan. Song Jifan got up and left the chair. He came to the center of the hall. Chief Chu, it's our turn. Shui Ling was about to speak when Chu Li waved his hand to stop her. He sighed. Are you guys going to snatch the Sky Killer Sword? We just want to get the Sky Killer Sword back, Song Jifan said. As for whether to persuade us with kind words or take it by force, it's not up to us. It's up to you. Chu Li smiled. If that's the case, then let's do it. He slowly walked toward Song Jifan and smiled. Please? Song Jifan pulled out the long sword from his waist and stabbed towards Chu Li. Chu Li pulled out the sword with difficulty. Song Jifan's body froze and his expression changed. The slow and difficult Sky Killer Sword stabbed towards Song Jifan's right shoulder. At first glance, it seemed that Song Jifan deliberately did not dodge and watched as the Sky Killer Sword stabbed towards him. Bishop! Lu Jun shouted. Song Jifan's body trembled. His handsome face was flushed as if he was fighting against an invisible force. He stared at the tip of the Sky Killer sword. Moo! Chu Li suddenly let out a shout. Song Jifan trembled again but did not move. Lu Jun rushed towards Chu Li with lightning speed. However, Chu Li had already taken 2 steps back and returned to the chair. His movements seemed slow, but it was actually an illusion. Everyone had this illusion. In fact, his speed was extremely fast. He stabbed in an instant, but in the eyes of the people, it seemed like a long time had passed. This was caused by the power emitted by the Sky Killer 3 forms. This power was strange and unpredictable. Chu Li could not figure it out. He was using the cosmic insight technique to derive and understand it. He wanted to find the source of this power, the cultivation method, and the way to use it. Good, as expected of the Sky Killer sword. Song Jifan shouted excitedly while holding his shoulder. Lu Jun nodded his head hard. His eyes were shining as he stared at the Sky Killer sword at Chu Li's waist. Chu Li smiled. Master Song, do you still want to continue? Chu Li, although your swordsmanship is good and your cultivation level is high, you are no match for me. Song Jifan let go of his hand. The wound on his shoulder was no longer bleeding. He said to Chu Li seriously, so it's better to be tactful. I will show you some mercy. Chu Li could not help but laugh. You came to steal my sword. I was hoping that you would show me some mercy. I wonder how honorable Master Song is. Humph, you will never imagine how honorable I am. Lu Jun scoffed. Chu Li said, even the leader of the Fu dynasty is not as honorable as Master Song? He secretly frowned. Logically speaking, if Song Jifan was really the leader of the faction of longevity, he should not have exposed his identity at this time. Although not many people in the world knew about the faction of longevity, they were all top-notch figures. Once the faction of longevity reappeared, they would naturally become a piece of juicy meat. Unless they had enough strength to protect themselves, they would not dare to appear in broad daylight. If that was the case, they had to be careful. Of course, Lu Jun said proudly. Young Lu, forget it. Song Jifan said. Yes. Lu Jun nodded without hesitation and took a step back respectfully. Chu Li looked at Song Jifan. In the end, he shook his head and sighed. Master Song, have a safe trip. I won't see you out. I will come again, Song Jifan said. Chu Li said, anytime. All right. Song Jifan looked at him deeply and turned to leave. Lu Jun stared at Chu Li and sneered. You don't know what's good for you. Next time, it won't just be the 2 of us. Chu Li frowned. His eyes flashed, and it scared Lu Jun. Lu Jun immediately became angry. He stared at Chu Li fiercely and turned to follow Song Jifan. They strode out of the public house and left. Li Meng hurriedly said, Are you letting them go just like that? Aren't you going to teach them a lesson? Chu Li glanced at her. Why don't you go and teach them a lesson? I didn't practice martial arts. Otherwise, I would have done it. Li Meng hurriedly said. Chu Li shook his head and turned to walk back. Xue followed him to the courtyard and sat in the pagoda. Xue personally brewed tea. When she served him a cup of tea, Chu Li took a sip. Xue sighed. Master, are they from an extraordinary background? She could see the fear in Chu Li's eyes. Chapter 1600. Chu Li put down his teacup and sighed. If what they said is true, then they must be people of great background. What's his background? Xue Ling asked. Chu Li shook his head. It's a long story. He explained the details of the Chongqing denomination to Xue Ling. Since Xue Ling was in charge of gathering intelligence, she should know about this information. Otherwise, it would be difficult for her to identify the most important information and she might make a mistake in her judgment. After listening to Chu Li, Xue Ling frowned and said, If that's the case, they are the descendants of the longevity faction? Chu Li said, If he's really a descendant of the longevity church, it's going to be quite lively for him to appear so openly. The heritage of the Chongqing sect would even tempt Empyrean gods. Empyrean gods were divided into different levels, and they had to continue cultivating. Even if they could not cultivate, what about their descendants? Back then, the Changshan sect was extremely powerful and invincible. Of course, the Changshan denomination would think of this. Since they still dared to make it public under such circumstances, they must have something up their sleeves. They already had enough power to maintain the inheritance. Could it be that they had another enlightened master? Another Song Wuji had appeared? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but shake his head. Master, should I send someone to keep an eye on them? Xueling asked. Chu Li shook his head. Don't move yet. Xueling nodded slowly. If that's the case, they must be very strong. Master, do you want to hand over the Sky Killer Sword? I'm afraid I'll have to hand it over in the end. Chu Li sighed. The sky-killing sword came from Song Wuji. Now that Song Wuji's descendant had appeared to demand the sword, Immortal Attraction Mountain would probably have to return it to Song Jifan. Song Jifan had directly asked him for the sword. Even if he wanted to return it, he couldn't rashly do so. After all, he had obtained it from Zhou Dunley. He needed Zhou Dunley to decide whether to return it or not. Moreover, even if he wanted to return it, he wouldn't want to return it to someone like Song Jifan. However, Song Jifan was extremely dangerous and could not be provoked. He was even more dangerous than Tang Su. Even if Tang Su ran into him, he would not be able to get away with it. Today, Song Jifan was able to injure him by surprise. It was a trick. Chu Li stood up with his hands behind his back and looked to the west. It was the inn where Song Jifan and Lu Jun were staying. He felt that Song Jifan's trump card must be the sacrificial divine art. After mastering the sacrificial divine art, he could exert 10 times the power. Song Jifan's cultivation was similar to his. If he used the sacrificial divine art, with his sacrificial formula and many secret skills, he would not be a match for him. If Master Zhou Dunley did not want to get involved in the matters of the Changshan sect, he might just return the sky-regaining sword. Li Meng said, if we really return the sword to him, wouldn't that be too depressing? Chu Li turned around and sat down. He smiled. You can't beat him, so why don't you return his things? You'll only return it after getting beaten up. Don't you feel aggrieved? Didn't you hurt him? Li Meng asked. Chu Li shook his head. It's just a trick. I won't be so lucky next time. I see. Li Meng tilted her head and looked at him. You really can't beat him? I can't. Chu Li shook his head. He trusted his instinct. There would always be someone stronger than you, and there would always be someone stronger in this world. He had never thought that he was invincible under the heavens. Even heavenly deities didn't dare to say they were invincible, let alone him. How about I ask my teacher to come and teach him a lesson? Li Meng said. Chu Li shook his head. She's bound by the heavenly rules. She can't simply attack grandmasters. He actually felt that Sun Mingyue wouldn't be able to beat Song Jifan. He really couldn't be proud of the sudden appearance of such a top-notch master. He just didn't know which country he belonged to. If he belonged to the Fu dynasty, he would have to get rid of him or cripple him before he could ascend to the imperial emperor's position. Then, when Master Zhou Dunley ascended to the heavens, he would ascend to become an enlightened master. Li Meng scoffed. There's such a rule? What's the point of becoming an enlightened master? Chu Li said, you'll know in the future. Now go back and chant. You still want me to chant at a time like this? Hurry up and ask Master for help, Li Meng said. Chu Li frowned and looked at her. All right. Chant, chant. Li Meng stuck out her tongue and stood up helplessly. I'm going to chant. She ran back to the Glories Will tree and sat cross-legged on the cattail hassock. She lowered her head and began to chant the great light scripture. The gazebo quieted down. Xueling said, Master, if you really can't do it, you should hide. Don't fight him head-on. Chu Li shook his head. The public house is the unlucky one. He's forcing me to stay here and not let me go to Goddess Attraction Mountain. Then we'll do as he wishes. Schwelling frowned. The public house doesn't have any deep grudges with him. He won't go so far as to kill them. It's just a matter of time. Chu shook his head. 10 times the cultivation level. How could he achieve 10 times the cultivation level? The secret skills he knew could not reach such a level. 3 times was already the best. This was also the reason why the Longevity Church was able to dominate the world. Others could not stimulate 10 times the cultivation level. Unfortunately, he could not team up with Sun Mingyue. Otherwise, he could defeat him. As for Goddess Attraction Mountain, he hesitated and did not go. He had to try to solve it himself. If it really did not work, he could go to Goddess Attraction Mountain and ask Master for help. Master, should we spread the news? Schwelling asked. Chu frowned and thought for a while. He shook his head. Schwelling wanted to get someone else to do her dirty work. After spreading the news, the enlightened masters would definitely come. Song Jifan could not even take care of himself. He did not have the leisure to snatch the sword. It was a matter of a few words. Why not? Chu was now hesitating if he should go against the Longevity Church. Once the news spread, the Longevity Church would definitely know about it. Then, they would become mortal enemies. They still did not know the strength of the Longevity Church. It was not wise to rashly become mortal enemies. It was better to wait and see. Then there's only one move left. Return the sword. Schwelling said. Chu shook his head. Let's test them first. Don't let our spies move. We'll wait and see. Yes. Schwelling nodded. Chu looked at her. You can't make decisions on your own. Yes. Schwelling secretly shivered. She could only agree. Chu waved his hand and Schwelling fluttered away. He practiced his fist in the courtyard as if nothing had happened. He watched Li Meng recite the scripture. After she had recited it 300 times, he asked her to recite it another 10 times. There were 10 times when she recited it wrongly. Moreover, he pointed out every mistake clearly, leaving Li Meng speechless. Li Meng could not help but secretly exclaim. She watched him practice his fist and talk at the same time. He was actually multitasking and listening to her recite the scripture. He even heard her recite every word clearly. This ability was amazing. It was late at night. Chu bade farewell at the backyard of King An's imperial residence. He asked Shao Qi to stay and returned to the public house alone. Then, he disguised himself as an old man and appeared in an inn in Chongming town. The old man that he disguised himself as had an aura of lethargy. There was no flaw at all. This was caused by the life and death scripture. Not only did he have an old face, there was not a trace of falsehood in his entire body. It was a sign of aging and decay. He stood outside a house and sneered. The remnants of the Longevity Church. How dare you? As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. He disappeared into the night sky like a wisp of smoke. Song Jifan and Lu Jun immediately opened the window and floated out. They followed closely behind him. They left Chongming town and arrived at the forest on the outskirts. A bright moon hung in the sky like an ice wheel. The moonlight was like water. The chirping of the insects in the forest suddenly stopped as if they sensed danger. The old man that Chu had disguised himself as had white eyebrows and deep wrinkles on his face. His eyes were filled with dignity and brilliance. He stared at Song Jifan and Lu Jun. Are you the remnants of the Longevity Church? Chapter 1601. Lu Jun shouted, Who are you, old man? What do you mean by remnants? We're the descendants of the Longevity Church. Then you're a remnant. Chu Li's voice was hoarse as if sand had rolled past him. He felt indescribably uncomfortable as he sized them up with his bright eyes and shook his head. The Longevity Church used to be so powerful and prestigious. Now there are only 2 or 3 of you left. It's such a pity. Who are you? Lu Jun frowned and glared at him. He scoffed. The Longevity Church has never harmed anyone. How did it become a devil church? Don't slander us. I'm slandering you. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. Go ask around. Anyone who hears about the Longevity Church will call it a devil church. How many enlightened masters have you killed? Those gods coveted our divine arts and wanted to besiege our Chongqing sect to snatch the secret manuals, but in the end they were all killed. They deserved it. Not only did they not say that they were robbers, they even said that we were the devil sect. How preposterous! Lu Jun sneered. Who exactly are you? Chu Li replied, I'm just a descendant of the enlightened masters killed by the Longevity Church. Then we're enemies. Lu Jun scoffed. What else is there to say? Let's do it. Chu Li shook his head. The Longevity Church no longer rules the world. After 1,000 years, the Grandmaster's martial arts are stronger. The era of the Longevity Church's dominance is over. Don't even think about it. Humph, old man, what do you know? The Longevity Church's martial arts are the strongest. Lu Jun laughed coldly. What bullsh *T Grandmaster's martial arts? It's just a trick from the Grandmaster. It's funny that you're still so diligent in cultivating it. What a joke. Ha ha. Chu Li laughed out loud. Then tell me, what's so good about the Longevity Church? It's just that sacrificial divine power. You'll only be left with half your life after using it. What a joke. Do you think we only have sacrificial divine power? Lu Jun laughed coldly. You're the one who's funny. The sacrificial divine power is just a secret technique. Who would use it for no reason? The Chongqing sect doesn't have any other cultivation arts. Chu Li shook his head and said, Let's not talk about Grandmaster's martial arts. Let's talk about Spirit Beast martial arts. In terms of true power, can it compare to the dragon taming technique or the black tortoise power? The 4 great spiritual beasts' unique skills are nothing. Lu Jun curled his lips and scoffed. You're really ignorant. Forget it, young Lu. Why are you talking to him about this? Song Jifan, who had been sizing up Chu Li, suddenly said, Let's do it. Yes, sect leader. Lu Jun hurriedly nodded and was about to make a move. Chu Li laughed at Song Jifan. Bishop? Are you the sect master of the Chongqing sect? Why? Can't I become the sect master of the Chongqing sect? Song Jifan frowned and stared at him. He had been trying to see how strong Chu Li was, but he could not figure out how strong he was. Chu Li seemed strong, but he seemed to be declining at the same time, yet he could not tell if he was strong or not. The two feelings of strength and weakness were tangled together, and it was very strange. He wanted to figure it out, but he could not. Chu Li said, You're so young. What makes you worthy of becoming the bishop? Is it just because you're Song Wuji's descendant? That's enough. Lu Jun scoffed. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. A hero like Song Wuji hasn't appeared for 1,000 years. Even his descendant can't reach his achievements. Under his circumstances, the Chongqing sect was destroyed. If I'm not as good as him, how can I be the bishop? Who said that our bishop is not as good as our ancestor? Lu Jun said coldly, Our bishop is better than ancestor Wuji. Moreover, the world is not the same as before. The Chongqing sect will definitely dominate the martial arts world. Young Lu. Song Jifan shouted. Bishop, we're going to kill him anyway. What's the harm in telling him? Lu Jun said. Song Jifan frowned. Be careful with your words. Chu Li laughed and shook his head. What are you laughing at? Lu Jun gritted his teeth and said hatefully, What's so funny? Chu Li laughed. How arrogant. The Chongqing sect used to be filled with masters. Now there are only 2 of you. How dare you say you want to dominate the martial arts world? I'm dying of laughter. Who said there are only two of us? Lu Jun laughed coldly. All these years, the Changshan sect has been quietly accumulating strength, waiting for this day to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Haha, amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. In that case, you can go and kill an enlightened master. As long as you can kill an enlightened master, just like Chu Li, you can naturally amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. Or you can kill Chu Li. Killing him is the same. Moreover, he is a disciple of Goddess Attraction Mountain. If you kill him, the Mountain Master of Goddess Attraction Mountain will definitely make a move. If you kill the Mountain Master as well, you'll truly dominate the martial arts world. No one will doubt that. That's what we're planning to do. Lu Jun scoffed. Chu Li could not help but laugh. With just the two of you? What a joke. Why, you don't believe me, Lu Jun said. Chu Li isn't as strong as you think. What about the Mountain Master of Goddess Attraction Mountain? Chu Li stroked his snow-white beard and shook his head with a sigh. He's not someone you can handle. Dominating the martial arts world is just a joke. I won't accompany you two lunatics to mess around. So what if he's the Mountain Master of Goddess Attraction Mountain? Lu Jun was indignant. If I can kill Chu Li, I can kill Zhou Dunli too. Chu Li shook his head. I originally thought you were the remnants of the Changshan sect who wanted to avenge your ancestors' death. I didn't expect you two to be fools who only know how to dream. If I fight you again, I'll be bullying you. I won't do that. Goodbye. He turned around and left after he finished speaking. Trying to leave? Lu Jun rushed toward him and slapped his back with both palms. Chu Li dodged sideways and had already leaped 100 feet away. Lu Jun let out a strange cry and suddenly sped up. In an instant, he was behind Chu Li and clawed at him. Chu Li turned around and kicked out abruptly and strangely fast. Bam! Lu Jun was sent flying and spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. Chu Li turned his head and laughed coldly. You want to kill me with such mediocre martial arts? Again. Lu Jun roared and flipped over to leap toward him again. Bam! Chu Li's leg moved like lightning and sent Lu Jun flying again. He had seen Lu Jun fight before. With the combination of the Heavenly Star Insight skill and the Nature Restoration manifestation, he had already deduced the weakness of Lu Jun's technique. Chu Li abandoned his hand and used his leg to kick out unexpectedly. The effect was miraculous. Lu Jun spat out a mouthful of blood in the air and fell limply to the ground. Chu Li had dealt a heavy blow. Since he had sensed their killing intent, he naturally would not hold back. All right, old fart, you must be tired of living. Lu Jun struggled to get up from the ground. He gritted his teeth and glared at him. Then have a taste of the sacrificial divine power. As soon as he finished speaking, his body suddenly expanded as if it had doubled in size. His eyes suddenly shot out electric light and a monstrous aura surged from his body. Chu Li frowned. The sacrificial divine power was indeed powerful. Although Lu Jun did not increase his strength by 10 times, it was about 5 times. This way, he had surpassed his own cultivation level. Watch out! Lu Jun let out a thunderous grunt and instantly shot forward like a flash of lightning. Chu Li dodged and his shadow was hit by Lu Jun. Chapter 1602. The sacrificial power could increase one's cultivation level by 10 times, and this was when it was perfected. Lu Jun's increase was about 5 times, which was already shocking. However, the sudden increase in cultivation level could not fully unleash its power. His control of his body was greatly reduced. His speed was faster but not as precise. His strength was stronger but he often exerted too much force and could not guarantee the subtlety of his move. Through deduction and prediction of his moves, Chu Li could predict his moves in advance and easily avoid them. Every time he almost hit Chu Li, he would always hit his shadow. His strength could not be used. Ah! Lu Jun roared angrily. He was too aggrieved and furious. He originally thought that after using the sacrificial power, he could defeat this hateful old man in a few moves. He did not expect this old man to be so cunning. He could not hit him no matter what. This feeling of powerlessness was too suffocating. It was driving him crazy, and he wanted nothing more than to tear Chu Li into pieces in one breath. Unfortunately, the angrier he was, the more he could not hit Chu Li. He could only roar to vent his anger. Chu Li laughed and said, "That's all there is to the sacrificial power. Old man, tell me your name." Lu Jun roared, "I will kill you." Chu Li laughed and said, "You want to kill me with your mediocre martial arts? You must be dreaming. You better go." As he finished, he kicked Lu Jun in the chest. Lu Jun flew out with a bang, and Chu Li flew in the opposite direction. The recoil was so strong that Chu Li was speechless. As expected of the sacrificial power, it was much stronger than his sacrificial formula. Only 1/3 of his spirit was on Lu Jun, and the rest was on Song Jifan. Song Jifan's expression was calm, and his eyes were fixed on Chu Li. He was carefully observing Chu Li, trying to see through him. He would not act rashly until he saw through him, even if Chu Li did not look too strong. He felt that he was right to be cautious. The old man was not strong, but once they fought, Lu Jun was helpless and could not fight back. Every move was aimed at his vital point. If this continued, Lu Jun would be defeated in less than 10 moves. To have such strength at such a low cultivation level was truly rare. He had to be on guard. This elder's experience and martial arts were both top-notch. His eyes were especially sharp, and he could directly see through the weaknesses of Lu Jun's moves. Those who had this kind of abnormal behavior were usually peerless experts. It was very likely that they were old or injured, causing their cultivation base to degenerate. That was why they gave people the feeling that they were not strong, but in fact, the strength they displayed far exceeded their cultivation base. Little Lu stepped down. After watching for a while, Song Jifan knew that the old man was not a threat to him, but even so, he had to go all out to avoid unexpected failure. These old fellows were all cunning and had many tricks up their sleeve. It was impossible to guard against them, so there was no harm in being careful. Yes, Lu Jun was unwilling and angry, but he still obeyed the order. When he heard what was said, he suddenly retreated to Song Jifan's side and whispered, "Cult Master, be careful, this old guy is a despicable person." "I know." Song Jifan nodded. Chu Li looked at Song Jifan and shook his head. "Young man, you're no match for me even though you're a bishop. Forget it." "That's not necessarily true, please." Song Jifan closed fist saluted and suddenly threw a punch, not giving Chu Li the chance to dodge. Chu Li was prepared in advance. Although he looked casual, he was 120% alert. He sidestepped to avoid the punch and sneered. "This is the real despicable thing. You're not worthy of being a bishop, you're really not worthy of being in public." Song Jifan frowned and his face was slightly red. He also felt that he went a little overboard. He was too petty, which was a common problem of young people. He was impatient and wanted to take him down in one move to establish his power. He had lost his sense of propriety. "You're the one who's not worthy of being in public, old man," Lu Jun shouted. Song Jifan's expression softened. He was very satisfied with Lu Jun's gaze. He said lightly, "Looks like you're really pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger." Chu Li laughed out loud. "So be it. Let's see if you can kill me." "You'll know once I try," Song Jifan said lightly. He threw a punch as if it was as natural as brushing off clothes. Chu Li smiled. "What is the fundamental heart technique of the longevity church?" "The ageless longevity technique," Song Jifan said. "You'll have the chance to learn it." Chu Li shook his head. "The ageless longevity technique, I've never heard of it. I heard that the Longevity Church has countless divine techniques and each of them is extremely powerful. Do you have the dragon taming technique? No, Song Jifan said lightly. Chu Li smiled. You don't even have the dragon taming technique. How can you talk about countless divine techniques? Song Jifan smiled proudly and struck out with his palm. Chu Li easily dodged it. Without the dragon taming technique, what about the black tortoise power? No. Song Jifan shook his head. The vermilion bird power? No. The white tiger power? No. Song Jifan said lightly. These martial arts are just inferior. The Longevity Church doesn't care about them. Chu Li could not help but laugh. How arrogant! The dragon taming technique and the white tiger power are inferior martial arts? Do you really think that they're that great? Song Jifan said with disdain. It seems like your vision is really limited. There are many top-notch martial arts in the world, such as the Invincible King, the Moon Howling Sky technique, the Immeasurable Light technique, and so on. The Spirit Beast martial arts you mentioned are just inferior. They're worthless to the Longevity Church. We don't even care about them. Chu Li smiled. The Invincible King, the Moon Howling Sky technique, and the Immeasurable Light technique. You have all of these? Of course. Song Jifan looked at him with a faint smile. Do you want to cultivate these martial arts? It'll be best if I can see them, Chu Li said. Song Jifan said, if you want to cultivate these martial arts, of course you can. There's only one condition. What condition? Chu Li asked. Join the Longevity Church. Song Jifan said, as long as you become a disciple of the Longevity Church, you'll naturally be able to cultivate these divine techniques. Chu Li said, the martial arts I'm cultivating are already top-notch. To become a grandmaster, unless I become an enlightened master, there's no point in cultivating anything else. Can I become an enlightened master with these martial arts? It's not impossible. Song Jifan said, there's more than one path to become an enlightened master. Chu Li smiled. I've heard that cultivating the dragon taming technique and the other 3 antique studies will allow one to become an enlightened master. It seems like you have the same thought. Song Jifan said, my church doesn't have these 4 martial arts, but if you can perfect these martial arts, you can also become an enlightened master. Chu Li shook his head. It's different from 1,000 years ago. It's impossible. It's fine if you don't believe me. Song Jifan said, then you can die. Chu Li scoffed. How arrogant! Song Jifan suddenly retracted his palm energy and pulled out the long sword at his waist. With a simple stab, the blade of the sword suddenly emitted a dazzling brilliance that no one dared to look at directly. Chu Li pulled out his sword and used the great heaven-deriving sword. Ding 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 ding. The crouching tiger divine sword and Song Jifan's long sword clashed. In the continuous clear sounds, the two of them had exchanged more than 100 blows. The great heaven-deriving sword complemented his heavenly star insight and nature restoration manifestation. Their powers overlapped and it was amazing. Chapter 1603. Chu Li pondered as he swung his sword. It seemed that Song Jifan was planning something big. He was using the divine arts to recruit masters. The Changshan Church's divine arts were famous for being powerful. Song Wuji was the best example. Many people hated Song Wuji, but more envied and admired him. They wanted to become Song Wuji and cultivate the Changshan Church's martial arts. Even if they could not become Song Wuji, they could still dominate the world. Being recruited by the Changshan denomination, even if he didn't agree, others might agree. If they learned these martial arts, they would definitely be able to suppress him. Seeing that his friends and opponents around him could suppress him, it must be a terrible feeling. With this thought, there would be many grandmasters who wanted to join the Changshan Church. After becoming a grandmaster, they would not be satisfied. Unfortunately, their path to becoming an enlightened master had been blocked. The Chongshan Church gave everyone a chance to become an enlightened master. Even if it was slim, they would try their best to grasp it. It was like a drowning man grabbing onto a straw. The Chongshan Church's divine arts were the source of greed and also their advantage. It was a great temptation and power to use it to recruit masters. According to his method, he would first display his powerful martial arts to suppress the arrogance and evil thoughts of the person being recruited. Then, he would use the divine arts to attract them. With a carrot in one hand and a stick in the other, he would be able to accumulate enough power. If this continued, it would not be difficult for the Chongshan Church to rise again and stand proudly in the martial arts world. When he thought of this, Chu Li could see a bloodbath. Ding 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 ding. Song Jifan frowned as he waved his sword and stared at Chu Li. He was a little confused. The old man's swordsmanship was so brilliant, but he had never heard of it. It was strange. Although the world was vast and full of extraordinary things, and there were dragons and pythons hidden in the depths of the wilderness, it was indeed a little strange that his swordsmanship was not famous at this level. "Who are you? Can you tell me?" Song Jifan asked. Chu Li said, "I'm Bai Li Na." Bai Li Na. Song Jifan thought about it, but he had never heard of this name. Chu Li chuckled. "I've always lived in seclusion in the mountains and didn't get involved in worldly affairs. I just saw the Chongshan Church appear again, so I came to take a look." "You still want to avenge your ancestor?" Song Jifan asked. "Don't you want to avenge your ancestor?" Chu Li scoffed. Song Jifan shook his head and said, "I can't take revenge on my ancestors. The dead are dead. My responsibility is to revive the Chongshan denomination and let it re-establish itself in the martial arts world. Reign supreme over the world." Lu Jun clenched his fist. Song Jifan glanced at him and did not deny it. Chu Li scoffed. "It's impossible for you to reign supreme over the world. Where there is a will, there is a way." Song Jifan suddenly stopped and said indifferently, "We don't have to fight anymore. If I use the sacrificial divine art, you won't be my match. Do you admit this?" "All right, I'm indeed no match for you." Chu Li nodded. "But with your current martial arts skills, it's impossible for you to dominate the world. I can't do it now, but that doesn't mean I won't be able to in the future." Song Jifan said faintly, "Elder Bailey, are you willing to remain a grandmaster for the rest of your life and never become an enlightened master?" "I'm not that ambitious." Chu Li shook his head. Song Jifan smiled. "Why do you have to lie to me? Any grandmaster wants to become an enlightened master, especially an enlightened master who can live forever and ascend to the Grandmaster's boundary to continue living. After stepping into the Grandmaster's boundary and becoming a celestial, one's lifespan will be 10,000 years. That's all nonsense. Who knows if a celestial can live for 10,000 years? Who can prove that they can step into the Grandmaster's boundary?" Chu Li shook his head. He was holding back. The more he did not want to enter the Grandmaster's boundary, the more Song Jifan wanted to recruit him. He revealed an exquisite sword technique. The great heaven-deriving sword technique, the omniscient mirror, the star insight technique, and the nature restoration manifestation were combined. Even if it was not as powerful as the heaven-murdering three forms, it was still powerful enough. He believed that there were not many people in the world who had such a sword technique. It was worth recruiting him. Song Jifan said, "That's for sure. There's no need to doubt it." "Forget it. It seems like Elder Bailey doesn't want to become an enlightened master. I admire such an indifferent person." Chu Li looked at him with a faint smile. He knew that Song Jifan was retreating for the sake of advancing. Song Jifan said, "I like such an indifferent person. I can promise you that after you enter the Longevity Church, you will be an honorary minister. Your freedom will not be restricted. You will only fight when there's a critical event." "Honorary minister." Chu Li smiled. Song Jifan said, "This is already the best condition. Although there are not many grandmasters, there are still quite a few. However, there is no divine technique like my church. I hope Elder Bailey will consider it carefully." Chu Li shook his head. "I won't agree." Sigh. Song Jifan shook his head regretfully. "Forget it then. Since you can't become a disciple of the Longevity Church, I can only kill you. What a pity!" He shook his head and slowly raised his palm. He really felt that it was a pity. Bailey Na's cultivation level was not too high. It should be a degeneration caused by aging. If he could enter the Longevity Church and cultivate the first level of the ageless longevity technique, he could recover his original cultivation level and become a top-notch master. It would increase the strength of the Longevity Church. Even if he could not recover, he was worth recruiting. The strength that he displayed was far beyond his cultivation level. He was already a top-notch master. There were not many people in the world who had the same cultivation level and strength as Lu Jun. However, it was a pity that Bailey Na was so stubborn. He could only use his last resort. Maybe he could change his mind before he died. If he really did not change his mind, he could only kill him to prevent the Longevity Church's grand plan from being exposed. His right palm suddenly turned blood-red. Chu Li frowned. "Blood Jade Palm. You know about the Blood Jade Palm. It seems like you've met the Church of the Divine Blood." Song Jifan nodded slowly. "I'm sure you've experienced the Blood Jade Palm. Let's see which is stronger, that Blood Jade Palm or my authentic Blood Jade Palm." As soon as he finished speaking, the Blood Jade Palm was already in front of Chu Li's chest. Chu Li countered with a cloud-slashing palm. Bang! With a muffled sound, Chu Li was instantly sent flying. It was as if he was hit by a running elephant. He could not react at all. He spat out an arrow of blood in the air. His face was so red that it looked like it was covered with a layer of red cloth. A strange force surged in his body. Chu Li was extremely shocked. He did not expect Song Jifan's power to suddenly increase by a few times. He could not fight back at all. He did not expect the Blood Jade Palm to be so pure. It was so ferociously devouring his blood essence to strengthen itself. Its devouring power was as strong as the spirit-devouring turtle. He looked down at his palm. His palm and arm were pale and green. The color of blood had faded and became dull like the skin of a dead person. Most of his blood essence had been devoured by the Blood Jade Palm. The cloud-slashing power could not devour it. He could only use the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture to dissolve it. Fortunately, after the Life and Death Scripture had been refined, the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture had also been refined. They could dissolve the Blood Jade Palm. Song Jifan stood on the spot and smiled at him. "This is the real sacrificial power. Once you've mastered it, you can advance and retreat at will. It only takes a thought to use it or not. There are no signs and it's impossible to guard against." Chapter 1604. Chu Li spat out a mouthful of blood. Coupled with the dissipation, the Blood Jade Palm was completely dissolved and the small injury was healed. He still looked shocked as he struggled to get up. He frowned and stared at Song Jifan. "Is this the sacrificial power?" Song Jifan smiled. "The sacrificial power isn't as shallow as you think. Do you think it'll be like what young Lu used earlier? It's powerful and domineering?" "It's worthy of its name," Chu Li praised. "Again. Sure." Song Jifan smiled. "You're stronger than I thought. What a shame. Why don't you consider joining the Longevity Church? You can take action 3 times a year. As long as you attack 3 times, you can go wherever you want as long as you don't interfere with the Longevity Church's business." Bailey Na was truly powerful. If it was someone else who was hit by the Blood Jade Palm, they would have become a dried corpse with their blood essence sucked dry. He was clear about the power of his Blood Jade Palm. It was a palm force of 5 times and could swallow a person's blood essence in an instant. Bailey Na was able to withstand it. He was truly a top-notch master. Chuli wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said, "Thank you for your kindness. The Longevity Church and I are enemies. Even if I don't avenge my ancestor, I won't join the Longevity Church." Sigh. If that's the case, I can only send you on your way. Song Jifan looked regretful. In a flash, the blood jade palm hit Chuli again. Chuli wanted to dodge, but he did not have time to do so. Song Jifan was too fast, faster than he imagined. Bam! Chuli was sent flying again. He crashed into 2 trees and spat out a mouthful of blood. Chuli used the blood arrow to dissolve part of the blood jade palm's energy. Song Jifan's blood jade palm was several times better than Huang Tianhe's. Not only was it pure, but it also had a strange devouring power that could swallow blood essence several times stronger. If Chuli did not have the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture and the Life and Death Scripture, he would have become a withered corpse. He did not know why Song Jifan knew the blood jade palm too. Could it be that the Church of the Divine Blood and the Longevity Church were related? Song Jifan did not hold back this time. He was determined to kill Chuli and followed up with another palm. Chuli saw it in advance and launched a heavenly king palm. A ray of light fell from the void, and the spiritual energy in the surroundings surged like a gale, instantly condensing into the shadow of a palm. Song Jifan blocked the Heavenly King's palm with his palm and looked at Chuli in surprise. Chuli scoffed and unleashed another Heavenly King palm. The wind howled, and the wind formed by the spiritual chi made his clothes flutter. Once again, a palm shadow condensed in front of him, and instantly hit Song Jifan. Song Jifan waved his hand and stood firmly. Although the Heavenly King palm was extremely powerful and overbearing, Song Jifan still managed to break through it easily. The blood jade palm was incredibly powerful with the help of the sacrificial divine power. Song Jifan did not wait for Chuli to use the Heavenly King palm again and struck him with his palm. Bam! Chuli flew backward and spat out another mouthful of blood in the air. Song Jifan stopped and stood behind him with his hands behind his back. "How do you know the Heavenly King palm?" Chuli asked. "Why can't I know Heavenly King palm?" Song Jifan replied, "The Heavenly King palm is an antique study passed down by my faction. It's a shame that you didn't use it properly, but to be able to cultivate it to this stage, you're already a genius." Chuli frowned. "The Longevity faction's martial arts?" "That's right. It was passed down by the Longevity faction. It's a palm technique complemented by the Heavenly King's supremacy. If the two are used together, the power will increase by 10 times, so you haven't mastered the essence of it." Chuli laughed and shook his head. 10 times? How is that possible? That's why I said you have a narrow vision. You think that the martial arts you've seen are the best in the world, but you don't know that they're all inferior martial arts. They're not even worth mentioning in my eyes. Song Jifan shook his head. Chuli said, "That depends on what you're capable of." He suddenly smiled and took out a jade talisman from his pocket and crushed it. Song Jifan's vision suddenly blurred, and the scenery suddenly changed as if he had left his original spot. Lu Jun hurriedly said, "Formation." Song Jifan said, "Looks like he came prepared." "He's really cunning, as expected of the old man." Lu Jun sneered. "Despicable. If you can't win in martial arts, you'll use this trick." Song Jifan said, "You have to learn from him. You can't just use martial arts alone, you have to be careful of other tricks too. Sometimes these tricks have some effect." "I don't know any formation, I get a headache just by looking at it," Lu Jun said. Song Jifan shook his head. Chuli stood not far from them, looking at their confident and calm expressions. He sighed in his heart, knowing that the formation would not be able to trap him. There were a few formations like this outside of Chongming town, and he had already set them up as an escape route. As long as he was outside of Chongming Town, he would be able to trigger the formation if he did not bump into one or the other. His initial plan was to use the formation to make up for his lack of martial arts, and then think about how to deal with him after trapping him. Later, when he heard their murderous intent, he decided to kill them directly. As for future troubles, he did not care so much. Those who wanted to kill him must be killed. If there was a chance, he would not let it go so that he would not regret it. Suddenly, he threw out a few more talismans. After they flew into the air, they turned into rays of rainbow light and merged into the original formation. The two formations overlapped and multiplied the power. He was sure that the two would not be able to escape. As for taking the opportunity to attack, Chu Li did not do so. Song Jifan's martial arts was too strong, and he must be using the sacrificial divine power. Once he got close, he would definitely counterattack like a flood. His original plan was to trap the two of them until they were exhausted and on the verge of death. "Ha, you actually know about formations, how rare!" Song Jifan exclaimed. There were only a few people in the world who knew about formations. Formations required the most talent. Without enough talent, no matter how hard one worked, it would be in vain. Reading a formation book was like reading a book from heaven, and one would not be able to understand it even if they studied it for a lifetime. Chu Li scoffed. His voice lingered in their ears, but they could not tell which direction it came from. "I know a thing or two, it's not a problem to trap you." "Ridiculous," Lu Jun sneered. "You want to trap us with just a formation? If it's a mountain protection formation, it would be fine. You have the nerve to use such a small formation in front of us. What a joke." As he spoke, his body suddenly flashed with a layer of brilliance, as if he was wearing a layer of light. Then, he suddenly shot out. Wherever the brilliance passed, the scenery was distorted, and he instantly broke through the formation and arrived outside the forest. Song Jifan was not as fast and violent as Chu Li. He just strolled leisurely, and there was no brilliance flashing around his body. He just walked slowly and calmly out of the formation. Chu Li's expression was solemn. He knew that this was a mystical technique similar to his Devahuman shedding technique. If he could cultivate the Devahuman shedding technique, it was not surprising that the Longevity Church had such a mystical technique. The two came to the main road and turned to look around. Lu Jun scoffed. "Did this guy escape?" Song Jifan frowned and pondered. He shook his head. "He's nearby." "I didn't see him," Lu Jun said. "Could it be that he knows the invisibility technique?" "He must have set up a formation to hide himself," Song Jifan said. Chu Li was 10 feet away from them, and he was in another formation. They could not detect him from outside the formation. "I'll do it," Lu Jun scoffed. "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.